boy defeated 200 monsters on his own. His name was Ash, the captain of the knights. After being used for years by the Emperor, he was betrayed and cast aside. Even the girl he loved threw Ash away like trash. Life was harsh. He had to venture alone into an unknown land. In a world where strength and power are worshipped, Ash became a genius swordsman in a world where strength is absolute. Monster nests, known as dungeons, appear all over the world. Inside them, deep labyrinths unleash all sorts of dangerous creatures. Bringing destruction, these monsters cause immense damage to the human world. In the midst of the chaos, citizens run, trying to escape the attacks. To protect everyone, knights fight bravely against the invading beasts. In these moments of despair, humanity yearns for heroes to protect them. Changing scenes, a village on the outskirts of the empire is in ruins. There, a giant wolf prepares to attack a woman and her child. Opening its mouth, the creature lunges forward to devour the two defenseless civilians. Just then, someone's hand quickly grips the hilt of a sword. Leaping in front of them, a mysterious warrior defeats the giant monster. Walking closer, he asks the woman if they are all right. Then, the man rejoins his group of knights. He then tells the civilians to leave the rest to his squad. Looking back, he introduces himself as the captain of that group. Giving the order, he commands his squad to eliminate all enemies present. At that moment, a monstrous wolf charges at high speed toward the captain. Watching the attack, he braces for the creature's imminent impact. He then unsheathes his sword to defend himself from the monster. Using his blade, he blocks the beast's lunge at the last second. After defeating the wolf, a flying monster descends from the sky to attack him. Screeching, the creature dives down rapidly toward the captain. Striking the ground, the monster narrowly misses its target as he dodges away. To gain distance, he rolls away from the powerful creature's reach. Looking around, he spots a farm rake leaning against a wall. Grabbing the tool, he prepares to use it as a makeshift weapon. Leaping into the air, he hurls the rake with all his might. As a result, the weapon pierces straight through the flying monster's body. He then watches the fallen creature, confirming the result of his attack. Around him, the battle rages on as his comrades fight other monsters. One of the knights then remarks that the number of monsters seems endless. Seeing his comrades, the captain shouts, asking if they are both okay. He then yells that they can't lose, as they must protect the village. Hearing his words, the two knights face him, ready to fight. With that, the entire squad charges forward together to face the remaining monsters in the village. After a long fight, the squad finally rests under the moonlight. Looking exhausted, he asks aloud if they finally got them all. Suddenly, a massive shadow covers the ground where they stood. Immediately after, they all look up, noticing the new threat that has emerged. Emerging from the darkness, a giant serpent reveals itself before the entire squad. Seeing the enemy's size, he remarks that one of the big ones has finally shown up. The giant creature opens its mouth, preparing a fire attack. In an instant, the serpent unleashes a huge blast of fire at the squad. As he is hit, he crosses his arms in front of his body to protect himself. He remains standing, enduring the direct impact of the fiery blast. Leaping toward the serpent, he goes directly into the creature's mouth. With its mouth shut, the serpent traps him completely inside. Using all his strength, he manages to stop the jaws from closing. Seeing the situation, the squad's archer shouts her captain's name. Next, she readies her bow and aims for the monster's head. Firing a single arrow, she jumps back to get to a safe position. The shot then hits the enormous reptilian creature right in the eye. As a result, the monster opens its mouth, allowing the captain to escape. Landing on the ground, he thanks her, saying she saved him that time. He then turns again, preparing to continue the fight against the monster. Running and jumping, he charges forward to deliver the final blow to the serpent. With a yell, he channels all his strength into the following attack. Spinning in the air, he slices the serpent's neck with his sword. After the battle, he walks away from the defeated monster's body. From a distance, the villagers watch the end of the terrible fight. Celebrating, the villagers shout that they finally won. Thus, the great monster outbreak in the empire was finally suppressed. All credit for the victory was given to the efforts of the 13th Squad. In particular, the deeds of Captain Ash were considered the most astonishing. He single-handedly managed to defeat over 200 monsters during the invasion. Afterward, his teammates celebrate the achievement with the captain. For his overwhelming strength, he ended up earning a well-known nickname. Changing scenes, the story continues in a grand castle within the kingdom. Inside the throne room, the king announces Captain Ash's recognition. As a reward, he is then granted the title of an associate noble. Accepting the honor, he bows before the king as a sign of respect. Leaving the chamber, he walks through the great hall to much applause. His friends remark that it was an incredible and unprecedented promotion. As they walk, they say the captain has now become a nobleman. With a smile, he then reveals he's also getting engaged soon. Upon hearing the news, his comrades are completely frozen in surprise. His friend then asks him to refuse the engagement, but he declines. He explains that his fiancée is the second daughter of the prestigious House Reagan. He then says that, as an associate noble, he had no way of refusing the proposal. Trying to calm his friend, he tells her that a lot of confusing things happened all at once. But he assures her that, despite everything, every part of it was a good thing. With his friends, he comments that everything in his life is going perfectly. Toasting with them, he believed he would finally live a life full of glory. Flash forward 3 years later, he asks what his fiancée said. She then stares at him and says she'll repeat what she said before. Standing up, she declares that the engagement between them is off. Not understanding anything, he can only ask what is happening. Changing scenes. He is summoned before a commander of the order. Pointing at him, the man yells that he is expelled from the Knights. Trying to understand, he asks what she meant by that decision. In a flashback, he's seen trying hard, buying her gifts and changing his habits for her. She replies that she's sick of dealing with a commoner. Furthermore, she reveals she has met someone from a count's family. He stands there, unable to believe their engagement is over for such a reason. Running towards her, he yells that he can't accept her decision. He denies it, saying her father was the one who insisted on the marriage. She reacts, accusing him of insulting her father as well. Closing her fan, she warns that she no longer wishes to speak with commoners. Pointing at him, she orders the guards to throw him out. At that, the two guards grab him by the arms against his will. As they drag him away, he begs her to at least listen to him. Before leaving, she says she never wants to see his face again. The scene shifts to the city streets, with the castle visible in the background. Walking alone through the city, he says the whole situation feels strange. Reflecting on what happened, he finds it odd for House Reagan to break off the engagement. Suddenly, someone calls his name in the middle of the street. Two knights inform him that he must report to the barracks immediately. Arriving there, his superior, Mike, yells that he's been expelled from the Knights. Not understanding the situation, he yells back, completely shocked by the order. He then asks why, and Mike replies that he's a nuisance. Approaching him, the superior says he's a threat to his position. It's then he finally realizes this man is Raffi's new fiancé. This was Mike Leblov, who got his post because of his family. Angrily, he wonders if Mike hates him for rising through the ranks. Seeing his glare, Mike asks what he's looking at. Touching his medal, Mike says a noble commoner irritates him. He continues, saying the monster incident was no big deal. Remembering his comrades, he listens to the accusations without a word. Unable to take it anymore, he reacts against his superior. Grabbing his superior by the collar, he glares at him with fury. Mike then threatens him, saying he can get his friends kicked out of the squad. Hearing the threat, he just stands there, unable to react to the provocation. With a trembling hand, he finally lets go of his superior's collar. Mike then asks if he's finally understood the difference in their status. Taking his medal, the superior says he's going to teach him a lesson. Tossing the medal to the ground, Mike crushes it under his foot without hesitation. He says bloodline is something a commoner like him will never have. Giving the final order, he tells the young man to pack his things and leave. Carrying his belongings, he walks away as other knights whisper about what happened. Head down, he keeps walking, leaving the knights' barracks behind. Arriving at another location, he knocks on the door before entering the room. Opening the door, he says he's there to return the knights' equipment. The man inside remarks that the infamous expelled knight has finally arrived. He then asks why he's infamous, and the man replies that everyone knows. The man says it's because he pressured his fiancée. According to the rumor, he forced his fiancée into playing some weird game. The story goes that Mike saved her, and that's why he was expelled. Leaving the place, he yells that this has to be some kind of sick joke. Furious, he punches a wall, screaming Mike's name. He can't believe Mike would spread such a baseless rumor. Remembering everything, he says he worked so hard to get this far. In just a single moment, he ended up losing everything he had achieved. Suddenly, he hears someone calling him senpai from a distance. His squad mate runs up and asks if it's true that he left. This is Ulrika, the only noble member of the 13th Night Squad. Meeting up with her, he corrects her, saying he was actually fired. She then shouts that she still wanted his guidance in the squad. Seeing her reaction, he just stares at her in silence for a moment. A flashback shows she was the squad's mascot. Hearing her shout, he looks back at her, a bit surprised. She then says that if he wanted to play that kind of game, he just had to ask. Shouting, he tells her the rumor is completely false and makes no sense. She then asks what will happen to the Janus squad without him. Caught off guard, he remains silent, just watching his squad mate. Going back 3 years in the past, The village was in the middle of rebuilding. A squad mate complains that he was the only one to receive a medal for the battle. His friend explains that the Empire doesn't understand the real threat of the dungeons, but he starts to speak, trying to cheer up his comrades somehow. He says the important thing is that they protected the village and everyone in it. He adds that they should be proud, even without recognition from the nobles. Getting an idea, he suggests they give their squad a name. Turning to his friend, he asks if he has any good suggestions. He then suggests the name Janus, explaining it comes from an ancient god. Everyone likes the idea, and the squad's name is finally decided. He then declares that from this day forward, they are the Janus Squad. Back in the present, he says he will always consider himself a member of the squad. He adds that it will be that way no matter where he is in the world. His squad mate then asks what he plans to do now. He replies that he's sick of the nobles and might go to another country. At that, she grabs him and yells that she'll go with him wherever he goes. Placing a hand on her head, he asks her to stay and protect the squad. After hearing his request, she simply agrees, saying she understands. She then asks him to send a letter once he's settled somewhere else. Waving goodbye, he walks away as she insists on his promise to write. With him now far away, she just watches the path he took. Afterwards, she stands there, a faint smile on her face. Elsewhere, he officially renounces his status as a near noble. Returning the medal, he announces that from this day on, he is just Ash. At the train station, he stretches and remarks that he feels refreshed. Holding a travel brochure, he seems to finally feel lighter. With a big smile, he gets ready to finally begin his journey. Soon after, the train begins to move along the Empire's tracks. Inside the car, he sits down to rest during the trip. Suddenly, a mysterious man opens the door to his cabin on the train. The man then enters the car, walking towards him without hesitation. Stopping in front of him, the man asks if he might have a moment. A little surprised by the visit, he asks who the man is. It's been 2 days since he left the Empire behind. Looking out the window, he's amazed by the magical train he boarded. Just then, an older man approaches and asks if he has a moment. A bit confused, he just asks who the man is. Showing him a pamphlet, the man asks if he happened to drop it. Thanking him, the man then asks if this is his first visit to the kingdom. He asks how the man knew, and he explains it was his curiosity. He then says that in the Empire, only the wealthiest ride trains. The man replies that in their kingdom, it's a very common form of transportation. He continues, saying the kingdom is advanced when it comes to magic. Changing scenes, the kingdom of Rosebell has always been threatened by dungeons. The only thing that could combat those creatures was the use of magic. Mages could produce fire and water from just their fingertips. They also used the miraculous art of healing the bodies of the wounded. As a result, magical tools were created from monster parts. With these magical tools, people's lives changed and became prosperous. Through research, the kingdom of Rosebell continued to develop more and more. Now, the kingdom is known throughout the world as a magical nation. Comparing the two places, he concludes the Empire is a very backward nation. Suddenly, an announcement informs them they are approaching the dungeon city. The train then pulls into the station platform, ending the long journey. Getting off the train, he follows the man who helped him during the trip. Walking through the city, he chats a bit more with the older man. Outside, a carriage was already waiting for them for their next destination. Shaking his hand, he thanks him for all his help on the journey. The man then finally welcomes him to the kingdom of Rosebell. With a smile, he replies with a simple, cheerful, yes. Arriving in the city, he's impressed by the second dungeon city. Walking through the market, he's amazed by the magical items for sale. The place was a large commercial center, bustling with people and goods. As he walks through the market, he observes the stalls with great interest. Suddenly, a woman runs desperately down a side street. Standing at one of the stalls, he notices the commotion. Seeing the woman run by, he's confused. Right behind her, a group of men chases her, yelling for her to stop. With nowhere to go, she ends up cornered in a dead-end alley. Surrounding the woman, the group's leader invites her to have some fun with them. Terrified by the situation, she can only say no to his proposal. Just then, Ash appears and suddenly places a hand on the aggressor's shoulder. He then remarks that the man seems a bit too drunk right now. Annoyed, the man yells at him to mind his own business. Angrily, the aggressor tells him to shut up and readies a punch. Dodging the blow, he easily evades the man's attack. In a swift counterattack, he lands a punch right in his stomach. The force of the blow sends the man flying, screaming. Seeing their leader on the ground, the other cronies prepare to attack him together. Screaming with rage, the two men charge at him at the same time. Dodging their blows, he notices their movements are well trained. He concludes that this is to be expected from a dungeon city. With a quick kick, he lands a solid hit on one of them. The impact sends the man flying forcefully down the alley. Seeing his friend down, The last man freezes, completely paralyzed with fear. Moving in quickly, he lands a punch right in the last aggressor's face. With all three defeated, the fight in the alley finally comes to an end. After the confrontation, he simply cracks his knuckles, ending the situation. Getting up, the group's leader unsheathes his sword. Looking furious. Pointing the blade, he yells that he won't forgive him for what happened. At this, he questions him for drawing a sword in the middle of the street. Leaping to attack, the man yells that he's going to end his life. Suddenly, an armored figure appears, shouting for them to stop now. Watching the fight, a knight says he can no longer ignore the situation. Arriving with his men, he recognizes the knight as Ash Hearts from the Empire. With a smile, he greets him, calling him by his name, Bale. Introducing himself as Bale Barone, he orders the arrest of the men he defeated. Flashing back to the past, the two are seen dueling in an exchange match. During the event, they faced off in several fights against each other. With the score tied, their rivalry was quite intense. Shaking hands, they treated each other like good old battle rivals. Back in the present, the two toast cheerfully, celebrating their unexpected reunion. He then explains that he came to the scene after a disturbance was reported. Taking a drink, he asks why he is in the kingdom now. He then prepares to tell him everything that happened. After hearing the story, he comments that it was an unfortunate situation. He vents, saying that it all still makes him very angry. Getting an idea, he suggests that he start a new life there. Confused, he just stares at his friend, not understanding his suggestion. Pointing at him, he suggests he become a dungeon hunter. Not understanding at all, he repeats the words, questioning what that is. He then explains it's a job where you hunt monsters in dungeons. Continuing, he says that someone like him would earn good money in this job. Getting excited, he says he'd be happy to have him as a hunter. Suddenly, a knight bursts in, announcing an emergency. The knight then shouts that a monster outbreak has occurred in the dungeon. Hearing the warning, he repeats the knight's words, still processing the information. His subordinate says the Hunter Association has already been called to help. Turning to Ash, he calls his name to make an invitation. Extending his hand, he then invites him to fight alongside them. In an outbreak, the monsters pour out of the dungeon and attack everything around them. When this happens, they attack anything they see, non-stop. Reflecting, he concludes they need to eliminate the monsters before there are any casualties. After thinking it over, he accepts the proposal, saying he'll help in the battle. Shaking hands, the two prepare to fight side by side again. Arriving at the location, they come across the kingdom's Hunter Association. Inside, several hunters were already gathered, awaiting orders from the knights. One of the knights then announces that Captain Bale has finally arrived. At that, one of the hunters asks if there's any news from the knights. In the command room, the situation was chaotic, showing the gravity of the problem. Arriving at the front desk, he asks the receptionist to explain all the details. Informing everyone, the receptionist says there are 100 monsters on the 10th floor. The captain then concludes that the situation will soon become a major outbreak. He then asks who the man is, and Bale introduces him as Ash. Questioning the decision, he says that Ash is neither a knight nor a hunter. Coming closer, other hunters ask if he has any battle experience. Bale assures them that he is skilled, telling the receptionist not to worry. Giving the order, he tells everyone to hurry to the dungeon. Once on site, they arrive at the entrance of the city's second dungeon. To prepare, Bale says he will lend him weapons and armor. He then asks for a light breastplate and a sword, and Bale offers him one. Placing the weapon on the table, he introduces it as a magic sword. He asks what the difference is, and Bale explains it's a fusion of technology. Showing a stone, he says the sword has special functions built into it. Taking the item, he prepares to place the stone in the sword's hilt. Immediately after, he fits the magic stone into the designated spot on the weapon. Holding the sword, he is impressed by the weapon's power. With a smile, Bale explains that the sword's cutting power is increased. He says that magic armaments can activate all sorts of special effects. Ready for battle, the group prepares to enter the dungeon. Descending to the first floor, they advance through the dark dungeon corridor. Reaching the second floor, they continue to descend deeper and deeper. Bale informs them that they've set up a barricade in front of the third floor stairs. On the third floor, they encounter a structure completely different from the others. He explains that dungeons are full of mysteries to be explored. Pointing to the stairs, he says they will form the units right there. Suddenly, the wooden barricade starts getting hit by something. Seeing the attack, he yells, warning that the monsters are already there. Calling out to him, he and the entire group rush to face the monsters. Without hesitation, the barricade is completely destroyed by the monsters' force. On the other side, a group of gigantic gorillas appears to attack them. At that, Bale shouts that the monster's weak spot is their head. With a roar, one of the gorillas charges forward to attack him with all its might. Seeing the attack, he comments that those creatures aren't very fast. Dodging, he cuts off the monster's head with a single, swift motion. Seeing this, the other hunters are impressed by the ease of the strike. He then wonders about the sword, feeling how easily it cut the monster. Laughing, Bale asks if he liked the magic sword he lent him. He then realizes that with the sword, he doesn't need to aim for the weak spot. Attacking again, he cuts another gorilla in half with no difficulty at all. After the strike, he just stares at the monster's body fallen on the ground. Despite being cut, the monster is still alive, dragging itself across the floor. Suddenly, the gorilla gets up and lunges to attack him once more. Slashing again, he notices the monster still hasn't gone down. Bale then warns that these monsters are special and very stubborn to kill. With that, he charges forward, attacking the creature with punches and kicks to finish it off. Dodging, he prepares to cut the giant creature into several pieces. With a cry, he delivers a final blow and finally defeats the creature. At the same time, Bale is also fighting and shouts that their hides are valuable. He says the pelts are popular among nobles for making clothes. Watching the fight, the hunters comment that the gorillas aren't weak. They then wonder who this helper who fights so well could be. Just then, a knight remembers the nickname Ash, the monster exterminator. That was the knight who managed to stop an outbreak single-handedly in the Empire. He had managed to defeat over 200 monsters alone in that previous invasion. Impressed, the hunters comment that this puts him on the level of a hero. The knight then remarks that he's on the same level as the 10 swords. Ash keeps fighting, while some of them wonder what the 10 swords are. At that, the knight says that it was the highest title a knight could have. The knight then answers yes, taking off the helmet he was wearing. Revealing his face, he says that every knight dreams of that title. Running through the dungeon, he yells that his friend seems to have gotten stronger. He replies, saying that he's also stronger than he was a year ago. Fighting side by side, they continue to eliminate every monster that appears before them. Turning his head, he asks if he really thinks he's gotten stronger. With a smile, he says that now he wants him to become a hunter even more. Standing over the bodies, he asks if they're all gone, and the other praises his work. Seeing the result, the hunters comment that the two of them alone defeated 300 giant monsters. They then conclude that in the end, they barely did anything at all. Back at the association, the receptionist prepares to announce the reward amount. With great excitement, she announces that the total value was 600,000 coins. At this, Bale explains that a top-tier hunter can always earn that much. With a wink, he decides to officially make him the offer. Looking directly at him, he asks if he wants to become a hunter. The receptionist also insists, asking him to please accept the proposal. After thinking for a moment, he extends his hand and finally announces he will become a great hunter. With the decision made, everyone at the association celebrates the news with great joy. At that, Bale suggests a welcome party to celebrate his new beginning. During the night, the welcome party takes place in the association's tower. The scene changes. A few days pass at the Imperial Knight's headquarters. There, one of her colleagues informs her that a postcard has arrived for Ulrika. Taking the card, she simply thanks her colleague for delivering the mail. Looking at the card, she tries to figure out who could have sent the message. With her back turned, she lets out a small laugh while holding the postcard. Touching her own face, she says she's going to meet her senpai. Back at headquarters, Ulrika celebrates with the card she received from him. Holding the card, she says her senpai seems to be doing very well. Looking over the card, she discovers it was sent from the kingdom of Rosebell. Suddenly, one of her companions greets her, saying she looks happy. Seeing her friends, she turns and greets them too, a little surprised. She then asks if they've finished their training. Sitting on the couch, her friend complains that things aren't the same. Serving water, she reveals that her senpai has become a hunter in the kingdom. She explains that a letter arrived at her house sharing all the news. Her friend then asks if being a hunter pays well in the end. Serving Will, she says the letter indicates it does. One of her friends comments that it seems easier to work over there. He continues, saying that being in the 13th squad is a joke. Suddenly, she announces she's also leaving the Order of Knights. Shocked, they ask if she's going after Ash, and she confirms. At that, one of the friends reveals he was also thinking of leaving the Knights. With that, her friend comments that the squad is going to get really boring. Excited, she then announces she's going to become a dungeon hunter too. Hearing that, Ulrika turns, looking a little annoyed by the news. The friend then asks where in the kingdom Ash is now. With a smile, she replies that he's in the second dungeon city. The friend says he'll go later, but she refuses, saying they should go together. He explains that he needs to talk to his family about it first. Then they say their goodbyes, announcing that the 13th squad is disbanded. Switching to the kingdom, Ash enters the Hunters Association again. The receptionist greets him, calling him Mr. Ash with a big smile. She then asks if he's there to register with the association. Very excitedly, she comments that his performance in the dungeon was incredible. Introducing herself as May, she says she's looking forward to working with him. She then hands him a form, asking him to fill in his details. Filling out the form, he tells the receptionist he's finished. With a smile, she says she'll register him and asks him to wait. A few minutes later, she returns with his hunter's license in a box. She then explains that he needs to show the license every time he enters. He then concludes that it must be to keep track of everyone. She continues, saying that all materials must be handed over to the association. With a smile, he jokes that he can't take pelts to make a coat. Making a gesture, she warns that hunters cannot renounce their citizenship. He then asks if he can travel, and she says it's better to avoid it. Finishing her explanation, she welcomes him to the Hunters Association. Holding the license, he thanks her and promises to do his best. After that, he returns to the entrance of the city's second dungeon. Arriving at the location, he stands in front of the dungeon entrance. One of the guards approaches and asks if he wishes to enter the dungeon. Showing his license, he replies yes, while the guard checks it. Confirming the registration, the guard tells him to proceed into the dungeon. Suddenly, another hunter bumps into him, making him lose his balance a little. From the bump, his hunter's license ends up falling on the ground. Picking up the license, the hunter apologizes for bumping into him. Just then, the hunter notices the beginner's mark on the license he picked up. He then warns him to stick to the lower floors so he doesn't die. Watching the group enter the dungeon, he wonders what their problem was. Adjusting his gloves, he says his hunter career is finally beginning. Wielding his sword, he finally enters the dungeon, ready to explore. On the first floor, he comments that he'll be able to explore at his own pace. Hearing a noise, he turns and senses a monster's presence. In the distance, two young hunters celebrate getting a magic stone. Approaching them, he asks what those two young hunters were doing. With a smile, one of the youths replies that they were fishing for slimes there. The young man then explains that he throws vegetables into the water to attract the monsters. Just then, a slime approaches to eat the vegetable in the water. Afterward, the young hunter pulls the monster out of the water with the rod. With his sword, he pierces the monster's core, finishing off the slime. The young man explains that it's an easy way to get a small magic stone. He comments that the slimes are perfect for earning some extra cash here. He then says that the monsters here don't seem very strong. At this, the young man suggests he go to the 10th floor of the dungeon. Suddenly, he turns, asking our protagonist for something. Extending his hand, the young hunter charges a fee for the information he gave. Paying the young man, he says goodbye with a wave, looking a bit sheepish. He then comments that he ended up getting hooked by the young hunter as well. Ignoring the situation, he prepares to go to the next floor of the dungeon. With a smile, he says he's excited to see the monsters. Changing scenes, the group of hunters from before is in trouble. The group leader screams, terrified by the number of monsters around them. With his group cornered, they are surrounded by monsters on all sides. Arriving on the 4th floor, he finds himself in a completely different setting. He then realizes the dungeon's interior changes on every floor. Looking up, he notes that even underground, there's a sky here. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from the tall grass nearby. A cute creature emerges from the grass right in front of him. The creature then turns, unaware of his presence. Suddenly, the rabbit leaps to attack him with the horn on its head. Dodging, he strikes back, reminding himself that it's still a monster. After defeating the creature, he celebrates his first hunt in the dungeon. Taking out a book, he tries to find the name of the monster he just defeated. Reading the book, he finds out it was a horned rabbit, just as the name suggests. Crouching down, he prepares to collect its horn and magic stone. He then puts both items into a small bag he carries. Holding the bag, he's impressed by its storage capacity. Seeing the price, he concludes that the materials from that monster were very cheap. He then decides fighting them isn't worth it right now. Just then, he turns around to find a huge group of horned rabbits. He starts running, desperately fleeing the swarm of cute monsters. After a few more incidents, he finally reaches the 9th floor of the dungeon. On the 10th floor, he meets other hunters, and his exploration continues peacefully. Reaching the 13th floor, he remarks that he's gone down quite deep. Walking through the area, he wonders what kind of scenery awaits him now. Suddenly, he hears a desperate scream coming from deep within the cave. Running toward the sound, he notes the scream came from far away. There, he finds the group of hunters being attacked by the undead. He then recognizes the group he saw at the dungeon's entrance. One of the skeletons prepares to strike the hunter group's leader. Rushing to help, he yells for the hunter to watch out for the attack. He then blocks the skeleton's blow, saving the hunter at the last second. Seeing the help, the hunter asks if he's okay, and he confirms. Facing the monster, He gets ready to fight the skeleton warrior. Attacking the monster, he tries to hit the weak spot the hunter mentioned. With the blow, he completely shatters the skeleton warrior's body. Even with its body destroyed, the skeleton keeps moving on the ground. He then wonders if the monster's weak spot is its head. Using his sword, he shatters the skeleton's head with one strike. After attacking, he breathes a sigh of relief, thinking he's finished the monster. Suddenly, the magic stone in the skeleton's chest begins to glow. Then, the skeleton's body starts to completely rebuild itself. Seeing this, he wonders if the creature is immortal or something. One of the hunters shouts, warning him that he needs to take out the magic stone. Observing the monster's chest, he realizes that's the weak spot. The skeleton then lunges to attack him with its sword once more. With a swift move, he dodges the attack and prepares a quick counter. Crouching on the ground, he gets ready to strike the monster's weak spot. Dashing forward, he hits the skeleton's chest with a powerful and precise punch. With his other hand, he rips the magic stone from the skeleton's chest. Holding the stone, he shouts, asking the monster what it thought of that. Without the magic stone, the skeleton's body crumbles completely to the ground. He then faces the other skeletons with a slight smile on his face. Now he knows exactly how to defeat these undead monsters. With a single move, he dashes forward and strikes a skeleton's magic stone. Immediately after, he attacks another skeleton, destroying its core as well. In a flurry of strikes, he defeats all the skeletons in the area. After the fight, he breathes a sigh of relief, wiping the sweat from his tired face. Approaching him, the group of hunters thanks him for saving them all. The group's leader then recognizes him as the rookie from the entrance. Apologizing, the hunter says he's strong and regrets what happened. He then explains that the dungeon had been quiet since the last outbreak. In a flashback, the group is seen heading deeper into the dungeon. He continues, saying that skeleton warriors ambushed them from the shadows out of nowhere. One of his friends, Sammy, protected them but ended up getting badly injured. They tried to fight the monsters, but the situation was too difficult. In the end, he admits they were no match for the monsters there. Back in the present, the group gathers to help their injured friend. Analyzing the wound, he warns that the cut has hit the nerves in his arm. Suddenly, a noise from the darkness catches the group's attention. Emerging from the shadows, a large group of skeletons approaches to attack them. One of the hunters yells, warning that more enemies have shown up to fight. Looking back, he realizes the group's situation is dire. Shouting, the female hunter warns him to be careful of the approaching monsters. He turns back, a little surprised by the warning he received. A large group of skeletons leaps forward, charging to attack them all. In a swift attack, he shatters the magic stone of one of the skeletons. But right after, other skeletons regenerate and rise again. He then realizes he needs to aim for the stones to defeat them for good. He then yells for the group of hunters to escape with their injured friend. With his sword, he destroys the magic stone of another skeleton. He then kicks the monster, clearing a path for the group of hunters. With so many monsters, he complains that he can't aim for the magic stones. Surrounded on all sides, he realizes the situation is dire. Not knowing what to do, he quickly tries to come up with a plan. Suddenly, he gets an idea, remembering an item he bought earlier. In a flashback, he's seen buying a sword and a chest plate. After gearing up, he says his equipment is now perfect. The blacksmith then gives him a smoke bomb as a freebie. He takes the item, wondering if it actually works in a fight. Back in the present, he desperately searches for the smoke bomb he received. With a smile, he finally finds the smoke bomb he was looking for. With no other choice, he decides he has to try using the item. Leaping into the air, he throws the smoke bomb into the middle of the skeletons. Hitting one of the skeletons, the item releases a large amount of smoke throughout the cave. The group of hunters wonders if the bomb will work on the skeletons. Seeing the smoke, he shouts, hoping the item works as it's supposed to. In the midst of the smoke, the skeletons seem to have stopped moving completely. Seeing the result, the group of hunters celebrates, saying it was incredible. He then yells for them to get out of there as fast as possible. Carrying their friend, the group takes the chance to flee from the monsters. Stopping to rest, he says the monsters probably won't chase them. Looking at the wound, he says the hunter's arm might be lost. He then wraps a bandage around the injured arm to stop the bleeding. Holding a potion, he yells at the injured hunter to open his mouth. He then pours the entire contents of the potion into the hunter's mouth. After a while, the bleeding seems to lessen, and they get ready. Changing scenes to the association, they finally arrive with the injured hunter. Coming out of the dungeon, he shouts for someone to call a doctor immediately. In a room, the hunter is placed on a stretcher and taken away. Sitting on a couch, he remarks that he's done all he could. Approaching him, the group's leader apologizes and offers a reward. He refuses, saying it's only natural for people to help each other in danger. An hour later, the doctor comes out of the room and finds the group waiting. He informs them that if it weren't for the potion, the hunter would have died. But he says he couldn't do anything about the arm as it was too late. Hearing this, Ash suggests they find a job he can do with one hand. Seeing their friendship, he comments that he feels a little envious. In a flashback, he remembers his friends wondering what they're doing. A month later, a waitress asks if he hasn't joined a party yet. Two hunters invite him to join them, but he says he's fine on his own. One of them asks if he turned down the invitation from the Golden Night party. He complains about the way that party's leader invited him. Suddenly, one of the hunters announces that a named monster has appeared in the dungeon. He asks what a named monster is, and the hunter explains. He continues, saying that a headless horseman, the Dullahan, has appeared there. They then warn him to be careful, as named monsters are very strong. Suddenly, a woman enters the bar, drawing everyone's attention. One of the men comments that she's very beautiful, and everyone agrees. The woman walks through the bar, passing by all the men who are staring at her. The hunters try to invite him again, but he refuses once more. Just then, the woman covers his eyes from behind, asking, "Guess who?" Not recognizing the voice, he turns around, a little confused by the situation. Seeing the woman, he recognizes her and shouts her name, Ulka, in surprise. With a big smile, she says she's finally found her senpai. That same night, the two sit down to talk at a cafe. Sitting with her, he asks what she's doing in the Rosebell kingdom. With a smile, she replies that she came to the kingdom to follow him. He asks about the knights, and she says she asked to leave. Sipping his coffee, he remarks that she's from a family of barons. She then says she cut ties with her family so she could leave. In a flashback, she remembers her father saying she would need to defeat him. She then reveals she completely defeated her father to be able to leave. Announcing her decision, she says she has also become a dungeon hunter. Hearing the news, he just stands there, not knowing what to say. She then asks if he can balance the work of a hunter and a husband. Mustering his courage, he asks if she has feelings for him, and she agrees. At that, he realizes that if she has feelings, he would end up liking her too. Remembering the past, he recalls his former fiancée and her betrayal. With a smile, he says it was nothing and changes the subject. Calling out to him, she faces him with a serious and determined expression. Holding his hands, she says he's a pitiful mess now. Angrily, she shouts that his ex-fiancé left a scar on him. Standing up, she promises she will never leave her senpai's side. Placing a hand on her chest, she swears she'll bet her life on it. She then tells him he doesn't have to be anyone's plaything anymore. Moving closer, she suggests they keep things as they are. He then chokes on his drink, wondering if she's always been like this. Trying to pull away, he says he needs to get back to the inn soon. Walking together, he asks if she's already found a place to stay. Pointing in a direction, he says his way is that way. At that, they end up walking together down the street in the same direction. Going up the stairs, he starts to realize they're heading to the same place. Arriving at the door, he sees that she's followed him to his room. Entering his room, she quickly closes the door right after. Shouting in surprise, he doesn't understand how she got into his room. She then explains that she asked at the association where he was and brought her luggage. Locking the room's door, she tells him this shows the seriousness of her decision. Hugging him, she says that from that moment on, they will always be together. Moving closer, she whispers in his ear while calling him senpai. Completely flustered, he just stands there, unsure how to react to the hug. The scene shifts to the next morning, inside the same inn room. Sitting on the bed, he stares at the room as she sleeps peacefully beside him. Waking up, she turns over and says good morning to her senpai. Holding his hand, she remarks that he showed a lot of restraint during the night. She then tells him she's in no hurry for things to happen. Completely embarrassed, he promises that one day he'll take the initiative with her. Telling him to get ready, she says she needs to get her hunter's license. Completely exhausted, he laments that he's going to end up developing insomnia from all this. The scene changes, returning to the kingdom's hunter association. Arriving at the association, he asks if she wants to get her hunter's license. Just then, the receptionist, May, greets him with a very cheerful good morning. Suddenly, Ulka appears and greets everyone, surprising the receptionist. With a smile, she announces she's here to get her hunter's license. Shouting, the receptionist asks her to wait just a moment. He then asks what happened. Seeing the commotion between the two, she explains she gave a small warning as the receptionist was interested in him. Angrily, the receptionist throws the license on the counter for her to take. Staring down Ulka, the receptionist declares that she won't lose, no matter what. Holding the license, she simply tells the receptionist to do whatever she wants. The two then continue to stare each other down, creating an atmosphere of intense rivalry. Caught in the middle of the mess, he just watches the fight without reacting. He then says that with the license, they can finally go to the dungeon. At the dungeon entrance, he tells her she can head down to the floors. Arriving on the 10th floor, they prepare to explore the dungeon together. Pointing at the monsters, he asks Ulka to try and handle them alone. Seeing the enemies, two giant gorillas prepare to charge and attack. Charging at high speed, the monsters rush toward her to attack. At that moment, she readies her bow to fire an arrow at the monsters. With a single shot, she fires an arrow that hits the monsters at once. With his arms crossed, he just watches the fight, looking slightly impressed. Grabbing more arrows, she prepares to fire a triple shot at once. With the 3 arrows on her bow, she aims at the gorillas for the next attack. She fires the 3 arrows at the monsters all at once. Impressed, he praises the precision and speed of her shots. The gorillas then advance, running toward her for a close-range attack. He then shouts for her to switch to close-quarters combat now. Drawing a dagger, she prepares to face the monsters up close. With a swift movement, she strikes one of the gorillas with her dagger. The creature then cries out in pain, hit by her quick attack. Doing a backflip, she attacks the monster with her precise dagger. With an aura-gathering acrobatic move, she lands on a gorilla, finishing it off. Watching the fight, he comments that her close-quarters combat is excellent. Standing over the monsters, she waves and announces that the fight is over. He then says she's a student he's very proud of. Leaving the dungeon, the two walk back to the city together. He praises her performance, saying she's gotten much better since the last time. As they walk, he suggests they head down to the 13th floor tomorrow. Suddenly, a hunter appears, running and desperately shouting his name. He then asks what happened, and the hunter says a named has appeared. He's surprised to hear that the Dullahan has appeared in the dungeon. Back at the association, all the hunters are talking about the monster's appearance. There, one of the attack's survivors is crying. A hunter explains that her party encountered the Dullahan in the dungeon. The hunter continues, saying that more than 10 people were killed in the attack. Approaching her, he kneels and asks her to tell him what happened. The hunter explains that the monster's sword attacked them all at once. He asks about the sword, and the hunter starts crying in despair. Unable to get more information, he stands up and rejoins his group. The receptionist asks if they're planning a burial, but Bale says they need to retrieve the bodies. Bale says no, explaining they need information about the monster's wounds. Just then, the survivor of the attack is escorted out of the Hunter Association. Watching the woman leave, they comment that it seems unlikely they'll get any information from her. Without knowing how the monster fights, they can't form a subjugation team. In a flashback, a giant named gorilla appears amidst the fire of battle. The receptionist explains that all the top-ranking hunters were needed for the subjugation. Back in the present, Bale says the association needs escorts for the mission. One of the hunters there says that if they run into the Dullahan, they'll be in trouble. Remembering the injured hunter, he falls silent, thinking about what to do. Calling the receptionist, he approaches to talk to her about the mission. Volunteering, he says he'll be the escort for the recovery team. The next day, the group gathers at the camp in front of the dungeon. Giving the orders, one of the leaders says their destination is the 14th floor. He then asks what they'll do if they encounter the Dullahan, and the answer is to run. Hearing this, 2 hunters there comment that it would be easy if they were the ones fighting. He then says it's a dangerous mission, and that she can wait behind. Angrily, she yells that she won't be a burden to him on the mission. With the decision made, he yells to the whole group that they're leaving. Together, the entire group runs into the dungeon to start the mission. Reaching the 13th floor, they find a dark and dangerous cavern. Suddenly, he shouts a warning that there are skeleton warriors ahead of them. With glowing eyes, the skeletons rise to attack the group of hunters. He reminds everyone that recovering the bodies is the priority. Turning to Ulka, he asks if she can shoot the magic stones. With her bow, she fires an arrow that shatters the stones of several skeletons. Seeing the shot, one of the hunters praises her incredible skills. They then comment that they can leave the skeletons for Ulka to handle alone. Suddenly, a strange noise gets the attention of the entire group. Just then, other hunters begin to run desperately. Watching the scene, they are shocked by what's happening. Amidst the flames, the headless horseman appears, the named Dullahan. Surrounded by flames, the monster prepares to attack the hunters in front of it. Raising its flaming sword, it prepares to strike one of the hunters. With one move, it attacks the hunter with its flaming sword. The hunter tries to defend himself, but his sword melts from the heat, and with a single blow, it defeats all the hunters who were there. Seeing the scene, they can't believe the monster appeared on this floor. Looking at the sword, he wonders what kind of weapon it is. He realizes that weapons and armor melt from the sword's heat. Seeing its strength, he wonders how they could possibly fight that monster. Suddenly, the Dullahan turns toward the group, sensing their presence. Without hesitation, he yells for the entire group to retreat as fast as possible. Just then, he hears a strange sound. turning to see what it was. He then realizes the monster isn't pursuing them right now. The Dullahan turns away, simply standing still without attacking the group. Confused, he turns and sees the monster thrusting its sword into the ground. He wonders what's happening, realizing that this gesture means something. Then, he realizes it's the etiquette for a knight's duel. In a flashback, he remembers his past duels against Bale. He also remembers the battles he fought against many strong monsters. With a smile, he unsheathes his sword, ready to duel the monster. Feeling a thrill, he prepares for a battle that could end in a single blow. Suddenly, he hears Ulka shouting his name, pulling him back to reality. Pulling him back, she says, "Everyone's safety is the priority right now." Agreeing, he sheathes his sword, looking a little disappointed with the situation. Running, he and the other hunters flee from the Dullahan as quickly as possible. Behind them, the Dullahan remains motionless, not moving from its spot. As they flee, one of the hunters says that only knights can defeat it. Then, she points at his face, questioning his expression. She then says he's smiling, which surprises him. Putting a hand to his mouth, he tries to hide the smile he just made. That monster could defeat him with just a single false move. With a smile, he asks himself if he really wants to fight that creature. That same night, the city of Rosebell slept under a starry sky. In one of the rooms, Ulka takes a bath to unwind from the day. Meanwhile, Ash sits on his bed, reflecting on the monster he encountered in the dungeon. Back at the association, the hunters who fled recount what happened. Startled, the receptionist shouts the name of the headless horseman's weapon. The hunters then say there's no way they can defeat that monster. She then tells them to give up on retrieving the bodies left behind. One of the hunters says the knights can't be called for help. With that, they conclude the hunters will have to handle everything themselves. Calling out to him, the receptionist approaches to make a special request. She then asks if he would be willing to take on the Dullahan. Caught by surprise, he is left speechless, just staring at the receptionist. Suddenly, Ulka pulls him by the arm. She stares at him, waiting for an answer to the proposal he received. He then asks for some time to think over the proposal. With a smile, the receptionist agrees to wait for his answer. Back at the inn, Ulka gets out of the bath, drying her hair with a towel. Sitting on the bed, he calls her name, ready for a serious talk. He then tells her he wants to discuss something important. Sitting beside him, she asks what he wants to talk about. With clenched fists, he reveals that he wants to fight the Dullahan. He says it's not out of duty, but of his own free will. He then starts to tell her to stay behind, but is cut off. With her hand over his mouth, she stops him from speaking further. Pinching his cheeks, she asks why he always does that. Angrily, she asks if he really thought she wouldn't go with him. In a flashback, she remembers when the outbreak happened in the Empire. Back then, he said the same thing, asking her not to go. But she recalls that, even so, she replied she would go with him no matter what. Resolute, he says he'll accept the mission to face the monster. Ash is confused by the situation, but Ulka grabs him by the cheeks and says he won't lose to that knight. She then says she won't leave his side and that they should talk about what happens if he wins. Ash says that maybe they could have dinner at a fancy restaurant. Ulka says that sounds nice, but perhaps she's thinking of something else. That when this is over, she wants something else as a reward. Ash questions her about it, and she confirms. He agrees, and she says he has her word. The next day, Ash and Ulka ask a weapons dealer if they have any items to counter a flaming sword. The dealer points to a shield, but Ash says it will slow him down. He confirms he wants a light, fast item, and the dealer understands he wants to hit and run. But Ulka asks him if those items won't just melt. The dealer says that if they melt, they're meant to be discarded. Ash is startled by this, but says he has a plan for that. Back in the dungeon, they arrive on the 13th floor for the battle. Moving forward, he shouts to Ulka upon finding the monster they were looking for. Standing in the same spot, the Dullahan awaits them, surrounded by its skeletons. He then realizes the monster was there, waiting for him to return. Startled, he turns to look at the bodies of the defeated hunters. He realizes more bodies have piled up, making the situation worse. Taking out an item, he prepares to use a strategy in the battle. After preparing himself, he confirms he's ready for combat. Shouting to her, he charges forward, and the two attack the monster together. He then leaps onto a pillar while Ulka attacks the monster head-on. With her bow, she fires a magic arrow straight at the headless horseman. The monster then easily blocks the attack with its flaming sword. From atop the pillar, he jumps down to attack the monster from above. The headless horseman prepares to strike, raising its giant sword. He strikes from above, and the monster blocks him with its giant sword. He then notices the monster isn't activating the sword's flames. The monster then attacks him with a powerful blow. He manages to block the attack, but the impact nearly shatters his sword. With difficulty, he continues to hold back the blow to defend himself. Seeing the situation, Ulka shouts his name and fires a precise arrow. The arrow hits the Dullahan square in the shoulder, forcing it back slightly. She then asks if he's okay, and he replies that he is. He realizes the monster still hasn't used its sword's flames. With this, he concludes the monster is enjoying their duel. With a smile, he says the situation is interesting and readies himself. Wielding his sword, he prepares to continue the duel against the monster. The Dullahan then prepares for another attack, raising its sword again. With a single motion, the Dullahan advances to continue the battle against him. Pointing their swords at each other, they face off in a duel. Then, the two continue to stare each other down, waiting for the right moment to strike. Leaping over it, Ash moves in to deliver an aerial strike on the monster. Ash attacks quickly, but the Dullahan blocks the blow with its enormous sword. Ash then realizes the enemy isn't using its flaming sword. Rushing forward at high speed, he charges toward the armored monster again. Seeing Ulka preparing to shoot, Ash yells for her to wait and not interfere. Wielding his sword, he says that the creature isn't actually a monster. He explains that its movements, blocks, and fighting style are those of a knight. Determined, he announces he'll try something different to confirm his suspicion. Taking a respectful stance, he introduces himself as Ash, a former Imperial Knight. Upon hearing his words, the armored monster turns its head toward him. The creature then brings its feet together, assuming a firm and very specific stance. Raising its sword, it performs the salute of the knights from the kingdom of Rosebell. Ash confirms the Dullahan returned his salute, proving it's a knight. He then shouts Ulka's name, who watches on, completely confused. He tells her he'll fight alone and orders her not to interfere under any circumstances. Looking at the knight, Ash says it's a shame he can't ask for its name. He then promises that its strength will be passed down through the ages. Shouting, "Here I come!" he charges forward with his sword ready for the final attack. With a swift movement, he lands a direct hit right on the Dullahan's chest. His attack, however, only causes a small crack in the opponent's armor. Seeing how tough it was, Ash decides what to do next. He declares he'll keep attacking again and again without stopping. Landing another blow, he hits his mark, but the knight stands firm. Then, a second attack hits the same spot, widening the crack in the armor. With a smirk, Ash realizes his opponent isn't invincible after all. The Dullahan looks down at its own chest, noticing the crack that has formed. It then forcefully slams the tip of its enormous sword into the ground. Immediately after, the blade is completely engulfed in flames. Raising the flaming sword, it prepares for a much stronger attack. From a distance, Ulka shouts, recognizing the monster's famous and feared flaming sword. With a smile, Ash says that playtime is over and that this is getting interesting. The knight charges forward with its flaming sword, signaling the beginning of the battle. He dodges, but an attack grazes his shoulder. Feeling the heat, he yells out as his shoulder is singed. Leaping back, he says that was a close call, narrowly escaping the blow. From a distance, Ash faces the Dullahan, which raises its flaming sword again. Using both hands, he manages to block another powerful overhead strike. Surprised, he notices the tip of his own sword has started to melt from the heat. Before Ash, the knight readies itself for another devastating attack. From afar, Ulka desperately screams, calling out for her senpai with great concern. But Ash just flashes a confident smile, as if he has a plan in mind. The two swords then clash once more, creating a powerful impact. Using a different technique, he manages to block his rival's flaming blade. Seeing the defense, the armored knight pauses for a moment, looking surprised. With a grin on his face, Ash says he also prepared a countermeasure. Showing a small pouch, he explains it's a magical item storage tool. From inside it, dozens of swords fall out and stick into the ground around them. He then asks if the knight will be able to burn all of his swords, or if he'll be the one to break the opponent's magic stone first with one of them. Grabbing one of the blades stuck in the ground, he gets ready to continue the fight. Wielding two swords, he challenges the Dullahan, telling it they should find out the result. Leaping toward each other, the two warriors charge into a direct confrontation. His blade clashes against the fire sword and is stopped instantly. Due to the intense heat, his sword shatters right at the point of impact. Without hesitation, he uses the other sword and continues to attack the armored knight. Barely dodging, he escapes a slash as the Dullahan relentlessly presses forward. The knight then positions its flaming sword horizontally, preparing a new attack. Immediately after, a powerful slash of fire is launched toward Ash. Upon contact, Ash's second sword also shatters from the heat. Rolling to the side, he dodges and repositions himself near the other blades. Reaching out his hand, he prepares to grab a new sword from the ground. As he grabs the blade, he shouts that there are now only 4 left. He then hurls the sword with all his might toward the knight, but the Dullahan easily deflects the attack with its enormous flaming sword. Tossing another weapon, he announces that there are now only 3 left until the end. Holding the sword with both hands, the knight prepares for an attack. It then unleashes a gigantic wave of fire in Ash's direction. With a surprised look on his face, Ash faces the power coming his way. The flames quickly engulf the entire battlefield. From afar, Ulka desperately screams her senpai's name, fearing the worst. Engulfed in flames, Ash manages to withstand the intense heat of the enemy's attack. Standing firm amidst the fire, he endures the attack with his sword planted in the ground. With a focused gaze, he announces that this is now the last sword. Leaping, he flies over the last weapon toward the Dullahan. Just before landing, he reaches down to grab the sword from the ground. Preparing for the blow, the armored knight braces itself in a combat stance. Then, the armored knight creates a circle of fire around itself. From above, Ash descends with the sword in hand, aiming for the center of the circle. Shouting that he'll settle this, he focuses completely on his final target. Ignoring the flaming sword, he lands the blow right on the Dullahan's chest. With the impact, the knight's magic stone finally shatters completely. Ash lands as the armored knight staggers back from the impact of the blow. Still standing, the Dullahan leans forward, supporting himself on his sword. He wonders how he didn't break the stone, leaving him with only a single sword. Suddenly, the flames on the knight's sword go out completely. The knight then turns the sword, offering the hilt toward Ash. Surprised by the gesture, Ash just watches as the weapon is extended to him. He questions if his opponent is really handing him his own sword. With his arm outstretched, the Dullahan continues to offer the hilt of his weapon. Then, Ash reaches out and firmly grips the hilt of the offered sword. The knight then opens his arms, exposing his chest as if expecting something. Holding the weapon, he wonders if the Dullahan is asking to be finished off. He states that the blow would have been fatal if his opponent were human. Closing his eyes, he says the fun and adrenaline rush are over. Raising the sword, he bids farewell, saying he was undoubtedly a true knight. With a final blow, he strikes the armored knight square in the chest. After the strike, the knight's helmet finally shatters completely. Crumbling, the knight's armor falls to the ground in several different pieces. Standing over the remains, he says with relief that the long battle is finally over. The scene changes. Night continues outside the Hunters Association. Shocked, May and the other members shout, unable to believe the Dullahan has been defeated. Smiling, Ash and Ulka joyfully confirm their victory against the monster. Back at the guild, he asks Ulka to put away the pieces of armor. Frantically, May gestures and yells for him to stop immediately. She explains they need to keep everything until the knights arrive, and Ash agrees. Giving orders, May asks them to contact Rosebell and prepare the largest room. Speaking to Ulka, Ash says the situation has gotten more complicated after their victory. Arriving suddenly, Bale greets Ash, saying he knew he could do it. Surprised, Ash asks if Bale came all this way just to check the materials. Bale explains that named materials require witnesses from both the Knights and the Association. Understanding the situation, Bale invites him to take a look at the items right away. Displayed in the hall, the Dullahan's armor is assembled with its greatsword. Next to Ash, an official examines every detail of the armor with a monocle. Confirming for Bale, the man says it's the exact armor mentioned in the report. Holding the sword, Bale comments that it's an even rarer find. Just then, the blade bursts into flame, and Bale identifies it as a powerful magic sword. Completely shocked, the official and May cry out in disbelief at what they're seeing. Watching the scene, Ash asks what exactly a sword of that type is. Explaining further, they say it's a weapon that doesn't require magic stones. Bale reveals this is only the 5th one ever found, a historic discovery. Looking at Ash, he says a great reward from the nation awaits him. Next, Bale asks Ash and Ulka to write a report on the battle. The official explains that the items will be sent to the Research Institute. Confused, Ulka asks what this Research Institute is. They say it's a royal organization that studies and also creates magical items. Changing the subject, Bale turns to Ash with a more serious expression. Asking what the Dullahan was like, Bale stares at Ash, waiting for a detailed answer. With a serious expression, Ash states that there's no doubt about its identity. Confirming his suspicions, he reveals that the monster was actually a true knight. Bale says he had already suspected as much, since the armor resembles that of ancient knights. Questioning the possibility, he wonders what the Research Institute will make of it. Lamenting that he doesn't know its name, Ash is asked by Bale about the opponent's strength. Showing a confident smile, Ash confirms that he was a great knight of the realm. With the reports finished, May congratulates the two on the excellent work they did. Stretching, Ash comments that it took a while, as night has already fallen. Tired, he suggests they head back to the inn to finally get some rest. But a group of hunters shows up, shouting that it's time to celebrate the victory. Totally surprised, Ash and Ulka stand frozen by the unexpected reception. The scene shifts to a tavern where everyone is gathered at a table, eating and drinking together. Raising their mugs high, they make a toast, celebrating the great achievement. The hunters say he'll now be called Ash, the Dullahan Slayer. Drinking, Ash thinks this new title is much better than the Exterminator. Then one of them asks if the pair has decided on a name for their group yet. Taking a sip, Ash becomes thoughtful about what their team name should be. In a flashback, he remembers the statue of the ancient god of creation, Janus. He also remembers his training days with Ulka, Will, and Mireille. With a faint smile, he seems to have finally made his decision. Looking at Ulka, he says the name was decided a long time ago. She smiles back at him and nods her head enthusiastically. Confused, the other two hunters don't understand what's happening. Together, they announce to everyone that they are now the Janus Squad. The scene changes. A steam train arrives and stops at a bustling station. Stepping off the train, a person sets foot on the platform, beginning their journey in the city. With a smile, Mireille celebrates, saying she has finally reached her destination. Observing the city, she remarks that the train ride wasn't bad at all. Excited, she admires the famous first dungeon city before her for the first time. With a determined look, she shouts for Ash and Ulka to wait for her. Walking excitedly down the street, Mireille plans to become a hunter with her friends. She imagines herself making a ton of money, drinking, and having fun gambling. Reaching her destination, she finally finds the city's famous hunter association. Seeing her walk in, some hunters on the premises gossip about her appearance. Then the group approaches her and asks if she wants to become a hunter, clearly wanting to get to know her. Completely ignoring the men, she goes straight to the counter and says she's looking for someone. She explains she's searching for an imperial hunter named Ash, who supposedly came this way. However, the receptionist informs her that there is no one by that name registered at the association. Confused, Mireille recalls Ulka saying this was the first dungeon city. In a fit of rage, she realizes Ulka lied just to be alone with Ash. Screaming, she declares she won't let her plan to get rich die like this. Asking about other associations, the receptionist informs her that there are 2 more in other cities. Unsure which one is correct, she decides to try the nearest one. She pauses for a moment, as if a sudden idea just struck her. Showing her money, she asks if it's enough to buy a train ticket. The receptionist tells her it's not enough, leaving her stunned. Turning her head, she hears one of the hunters calling out to her from across the hall. Approaching her, the group says they can lend her the missing money. Resting a hand on her shoulder, the leader begins to explain what he wants in exchange. With a weary sigh, Mireille seems to have had enough of the whole situation. Suddenly, she lands a powerful punch right in the leader's face. Thrown back, the man hits the ground while the others stand there in shock. Without wasting a second, she lunges toward the second hunter in the group. With a precise kick, she strikes the second opponent square in the face. Seeing his friend on the ground, the last guy curses at her. Visibly enraged, turning to the final man, she prepares to end the fight for good. She then delivers a powerful kick to the last member still standing. With all 3 on the ground, Mireille stands still, observing the results of the brawl. Getting up furiously, the leader screams that she'll pay for what she did. Dodging a punch, she ducks and evades the attack with ease. Stepping forward, he lunges right past her defense, completely off balance. Next, Mireille lands a pinpoint kick, hitting him square in the head. Upon impact, the man spits and falls to the ground, completely unconscious. She then angrily warns them she's in a bad mood and tells them to get lost. Watching the scene from the counter, the receptionist is shocked, finding it all incredible. She suggests that Mireille become a hunter to earn the money she needs. Having an epiphany, Mireille realizes she can become a hunter and make a fortune. Determined, she says she'll earn enough to go after Ash. 2 days later, Ash and Ulka are walking peacefully together through the city. As they walk, Ulka calls out to him, seeming to have something important to say. They run into Bale, who explains he is escorting the armor to the capital. Calling them both over, Bale seems to have something serious to tell them. He reveals there was an ancient, faded inscription on the Dullahan's armor. Apparently, he was a knight who never returned from a dungeon. Ash asks if he'll turn into a monster if he dies, and Bale says no one knows. Bale says the Institute will investigate, hoping the items will be useful. He says goodbye, informing them that the Institute and the Association will provide their rewards. Bidding farewell, Ash and Ulka agree to go to the Association to collect the money. Back at the guild, they wait to finally receive payment for the mission. Shocked, they discover the total reward is 5 million rows. In disbelief, they calculate how much each will receive from the jackpot. May also informs them they've become exclusive hunters for the second dungeon city. Ash asks if that's a big deal, and she confirms they'll receive special treatment. Excited, she asks them to keep defeating many monsters from now on. At night, Ash is in his room, thinking about everything that has happened recently. Holding a glass, he reflects on his future and what he will do. Alone, He wonders what he should do with all the money he earned. Just then, his bedroom door opens slowly, making a creaking sound. Someone enters the room, walking barefoot toward where he is sitting. Turning his head, he is called Senpai by a familiar, well-known voice. Coming up from behind, Ulka hugs him and reminds him about the reward he promised. Visibly embarrassed, Ash stammers a bit but eventually agrees to her request. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Ulka invites him to join her. Not knowing what to do, Ash kneels on the floor, facing her. Now on the bed, the two stare at each other closely in complete silence. Then she gently pushes him, making him lie down on the mattress. Getting on top of him, Ulka watches him with a very determined look. Staring at him, she flashes a smile while he seems totally stunned. Holding his arm, she asks him to position it a specific way. Lying down beside him, she snuggles in and uses his arm as a pillow. She then says she wants to use his arm as a pillow whenever they sleep. Completely surprised, he just looks at her, not knowing what to say. He asks if that's all, and she asks if he's disappointed. She says she promised to wait, but asks if she's being unfair to him. With a smile, he replies, no, saying he's the one being unfair. Stroking her head, he carefully draws her closer. Hugging her, he says she is precious and asks her to stay by his side. Smiling, she confirms, promising she will always stay by her senpai's side. Promising to stay with her, he reaffirms his commitment to her forever. A week after the incident, the memory of that battle was still very fresh. As the Janus squad, they were now living their new lives as hunters. Ulka comments that the skeletons on the 15th floor are now way too easy. Ash then asks what the 16th floor would be like, and she says she doesn't know. Inviting her to move forward, he suggests they take a look at the next level. Entering the new floor, they encounter a totally unexpected scene. Before them, a vast desert landscape stretches as far as the eye can see. Surprised by the scale, Ash questions if this is really inside the dungeon. Ulka comments on the mystery of dungeons, and Ash notices a strange movement. Suddenly, a massive flying monster appears in the sky, catching their attention. Flying at high speed, one of the smaller creatures dives toward the two of them. Bracing for combat, Ash takes his fighting stance. Leaping into the air, he lands a precise strike right in the middle of the monster. Hit dead on, the creature lets out a scream and begins to fall to the ground. While flying, the creature launches several of its feathers toward the ground. Upon hitting the floor, the feathers embed themselves deeply into the dry earth. Immediately after, each of the embedded feathers begins to glow intensely. A large explosion occurs, nearly hitting Ash, who throws himself backward. Ulka realizes the creature uses magic, launching its feathers to explode. Recovering in the air, the monster lets out a screech and prepares to attack. Screaming for Ulka to run, Ash warns that the creature is coming again, but suddenly, a voice says that this is actually their chance. Side by side with an unknown woman, Ash looks toward the battle ahead. Without hesitation, the woman charges and delivers a powerful blow against the monsters. Her attack hits the creatures dead on, blowing them away with the impact. Landing on the ground, she prepares to continue the attack without giving them a break. Surprised, Ash and Ulka just watch the unknown warrior in action. Shouting for them to keep going, the woman orders her group to advance. Several other hunters appear, running to join the battle against the creatures. Supporting the attack, an archer fires an arrow at the flying monsters. The shot hits one of the creatures square on, while the others continue to fly. Another female warrior in the group slashes one of the monsters with her sword. At the same time, another hunter attacks, hitting another creature with his dagger. Impressed by the scene, Ash comments that their skill is simply incredible. Coming closer, the group leader greets him, saying it's been a long time. Relieved by the help, Ash thanks her, calling her by the name Tanya. Suddenly, Tanya gets very close to him, leaving him completely speechless. Seeing the scene, Ulka freezes with an expression of pure shock on her face. Standing very close, Tanya says the pleasure of helping him was all hers. At that, Ulka runs and jumps between the two, screaming for them to stop immediately. Pushing Ash, Ulka asks Tanya what she thinks she's doing all of a sudden. Holding Ash tightly, Ulka glares at her, demanding to know who that person is. With a smile, Tanya watches as Ulka asks Ash exactly who she is. Back at the tavern, the three of them gather at a table to talk. Introducing herself as Tanya Sandor, she says it's a pleasure to meet the young lady. Ash then explains that she's the leader of the famous group, Sword of the Goddess. He asks if she wasn't visiting family, and she confirms she just got back today. Tanya laments, saying that if she hadn't been away, she would have defeated the monster herself. Annoyed, Ulka says she has no idea how strong it was, but Ash disagrees. He reveals that she was one of the people who defeated the Red Ape years ago. Saying it's no big deal, she explains she became a hunter to make a name for herself. Ulka then questions why such an important noble would know her senpai. Revealing the reason, Ash says she's invited him to her group before. With an intense gaze, Tanya warns that she hasn't given up on the idea yet. Ash comments that joining them would stabilize the hunts on the lower floors. Making a bold proposal, she says he can have her body however he wants. Completely shocked, Ulka yells, asking what she just said to him. She asks if it's not a good deal, but he says that's not the point. Getting up from the table, Ash tells them he needs to go to the restroom. With a smile on her face, Tanya watches him intently as he walks away. Slamming her mug hard on the table, Ulka shouts, getting Tanya's attention. With a furious look, Ulka warns that she'll kill her if she lays a hand on her senpai. Laughing, Tanya comments that Ulka seems to be the jealous type. Grabbing her chin, Tanya says her interest isn't just in Ash. Making her objective clear, she reveals she wants Ulka too, along with him. Screaming in shock, Ulka can't believe what she just heard. Pointing to her group, she says they're all satisfied with her technique. The other members of her group just look away, saying nothing. In disbelief, Ulka accuses her of being a complete pervert right then and there. Confident, Tanya says she gets everything she wants using all of her weapons. Unfazed, Ulka glares back at her, maintaining a very serious expression. Declaring her determination, Ulka warns that she won't lose and won't give up on her senpai. Getting the message, Tanya snaps her fingers, proposing they start the contest. Bringing several full mugs, the waitresses get ready to serve the two competitors. Proposing a drinking contest, Tanya says they'll settle the dispute right there. Returning to the table, Ash can't believe what the two of them are doing. Starting the competition, they down the mugs one after another, without stopping. Shouting for another drink, they glare at each other defiantly. Trying to stop her, Ash tells Ulka she should stop, but she ignores him. Seeing Ulka passed out, he tells Tanya that's enough drinking for one night. She then says that he owes her one, and that she'll be waiting for him. With a smile, he replies that she'll be waiting for nothing then. Hearing his reply, she just chuckles, amused by the situation. Saying goodbye to Ash, she turns and leaves with her entire group. Afterward, he carries Ulka on his back, taking her away through the city's dark streets. Even while passed out, she calls him senpai and tells him to hold on to her. Hugging his neck, she says she won't give him up to anyone else. Carrying her, he continues on his way back to the inn in silence. The next day, an older man approaches them, asking them to tell him about the Dullahan. Not understanding at all, Ash asks, "Excuse me?" wanting to know what this is about. Shaking their hands, the man identifies them as Ash and Ulrika, the heroes. Getting close to Ash, he excitedly asks what it was like to fight the monster. Turning to Ulka, he also questions her about the length of the long battle. Asking several questions, he wants to know every detail of the great fight. Completely lost, they wonder who this very interested person could be. Then Ash steps forward and politely asks his name. Introducing himself, he says he is Edgar Bayluna, director of the Research Institute. Realizing his importance, the two are completely shocked by the great revelation. He explains that he saw the monster's armor and found it simply fascinating. Wanting more details, he says he couldn't stand it and came to talk to them in person. Impressed by the situation, Ash notices the man's incredible energy. With the introductions over, he takes out an item, ready for the next step. Pointing his finger, he concentrates to begin some kind of procedure. With his finger in flames, Edgar faces them with a very serious expression. Realizing it's magic, the two are impressed by the man's power. Then he uses the flame to light a cigar, preparing to talk. Revealing he is a mage, he asks once more for them to tell him everything about the Dullahan. Edgar asks them once more to tell him everything about the battle. Sitting on the sofa, they agree to reveal all the details of the long fight. As time passes, their account of the battle continues uninterrupted. Finishing his report, Ash says that's all he knows about the Dullahan. After hearing everything, Edgar says he understands and congratulates them on a job well done. Ash then asks him what he thinks about their theories. Putting out his cigar, Edgar confirms he agrees with the hypothesis that it was human. Ash then asks if it's really possible for a human to turn into a monster. Revealing new information, Edgar says he investigated the 14th floor of the dungeon. In a flashback, he is seen exploring the area where the Dullahan was found. Inside, he adjusts the light of his lamp to see better in the darkness. Suddenly, he is startled when he illuminates something completely unexpected inside the cave. He then finds several skeletons of the kingdom's former knights scattered on the floor. They were the remains of countless knights, fused into the walls and turned to bone. Hearing the discovery, Ash and Ulka are completely shocked by the terrible revelation. Surprised, Ash asks if those knights were the Dullahan's companions, and Edgar confirms it. Facing them, he asks if they know about the source of magical power. He explains that dungeons are saturated with the mana that mages use. Because of this, a common sword exposed to this mana becomes magical. Following this logic, he theorizes that bodies can transform into monsters. Sitting on the sofa, the two remain silent, processing the new information. With a smile, Edgar asks if they don't sense the thrill in this discovery. Excited, he says that unraveling mysteries is the truth the kingdom seeks. Ash asks if he explored the 14th floor alone, visibly worried. Laughing at the question, Edgar denies it, saying he brought his assistant and some hunters. Suddenly, a young man enters the room, shouting that he's finally found Sir Edgar. Edgar asks why Sergio is in such a hurry, and he replies, annoyed. Scolding him, he questions why Edgar always goes off alone and does whatever he wants. Laughing at the scene, Bale explains that Edgar is always like this when it comes to dungeons. Speaking to Bale, Ash comments that he just heard how to make magic swords. Desperate, Bale asks them to keep it a secret, leaving Ash embarrassed. Edgar tells Bale he's heard interesting things and that they should proceed. Calling Ash and Ulka, Bale asks them to return to the association the next day. Not understanding anything, the two look at each other, completely confused by the request. The next day, they are back at the Hunters Association as arranged. Sitting at a table, they wait, while May organizes some documents nearby. Hearing the door open, Ash turns and asks if Bale has arrived yet. Making a grand entrance, a man with long blonde hair appears in the room. Introduced as Kyle, the leader of the Golden Knight, he stands out for his appearance. Also arriving is the leader of the Muscle Encounter, Talon, with his usual imposing physique. Shortly after, Tanya, the leader of the Goddess's Sword, also enters the hall. Ash asks if Bale called all of them, and one of the hunters confirms. Realizing the situation, Tanya comments that all the elite groups are gathered here. Seeing Tanya, Ulka gets furious, staring intensely at her rival. Arriving with Bale, Edgar greets everyone, saying the meeting is about to begin. Asking about the plan, Kyle questions Bale about the hunter meeting. As Bale unfolds a map, Edgar explains the recent increase in named monsters. Showing the images, he cites the red ape and the Dullahan as powerful examples. Pointing to the map, he says the monsters only appear in the second dungeon. With a determined look, he announces a large-scale investigation of the dungeon. He then explains that's why the city's best hunters have been gathered. Asking for everyone's cooperation, he formally requests their help in the dangerous investigation. Surprised by the request, all the group leaders remain silent for a moment. Taking the floor, Bale explains they must accompany the knights to the deepest levels. One of the hunters asks if it's the 20th floor, finding the scale unprecedented. May then informs them that the association is already arranging all the necessary supplies. Raising her hand, Tanya asks if everyone's participation is truly mandatory. Bale confirms that it is, as it's a direct order from the Queen of the Kingdom herself. One of the hunters comments that with so many heroes, the mission will be a piece of cake. But Bale warns them, telling them not to underestimate it, and asks what the deepest floor they've reached is. Answering the question, Tanya says she has reached the 18th, and the others the 17th. Revealing his position, Ash says that he and Ulka are still exploring the 16th floor. Thoughtfully, Bale warns that their real problem is the 19th floor. Revealing a grim fact, he tells them that teams have been annihilated on the 19th floor. Shocked by the news, Tanya asks if even the knights with magic weapons were defeated. Confirming her suspicion, Bale says there is a monster there far superior to the others. Revealing its name, he says the creature is called the Lizard King. Sitting at a cafe, Ash and Ulka enjoy a quiet, sunny moment together. With a smile, Ulka offers him a strawberry, asking her senpai to open his mouth. A bit embarrassed, he just stares at the strawberry she's holding on her fork. She insists, bringing the fruit closer to his mouth with a cheerful expression. Then, she feeds him the strawberry, catching him completely by surprise with the gesture. He then says it's delicious, making Ulka very happy with the compliment. Suddenly, his expression changes as he hears a noise from the nearby street. Several knights on horseback ride by, escorting a supply wagon through the city. Watching the scene, Ash comments that they're bringing the equipment for the investigation. Ulka wonders if everything will be okay, and he says this kingdom is different. Thinking about the future, she asks what he plans to do with the money they've saved. Taking a sip, he starts listing their usual expenses like taxes and other costs. He then reveals that he's thinking about maybe buying a house with a yard. Excited, Ulka says it would be great to have more space for their weapons and gear. Smiling, he says she'll want a room of her own for some privacy. Confused by the idea, she wonders about having her own room. She then shouts that the house would be their love nest. Seeing her reaction, Ash asks if she doesn't like it, but she denies it. With a big smile, she says she's actually very happy with the idea. So they agree they need to finish the investigation as quickly as possible. On the day of the investigation, the hunters and knights gather in the city. Then, two hunters point out the groups arriving at the location. They recognize Tanya's group, the famous and strong Sword of the Goddess. Right after, the Golden Knight group, led by Kyle, also shows up. In the back, Talon's muscle encounter catches everyone's attention. Pointing to the end of the line, they announce the last group to arrive. With a confident stance, The Janus squad, with Ash and Ulka, joins them. Impressed, the hunters comment that with this team, everything will work out. Among the knights, one complains, saying they didn't need help from hunters. Suddenly, someone glares back at him, asking what he meant. With a furious look, Talon says that's not something you can just ignore. Ulka tries to warn Ash, who is already preparing to intervene in their argument. Ash challenges the knights, saying they know nothing about the battles they've fought. Trying to calm the situation, Ash says they're all on the same side for this investigation. The knight provokes him, saying his victory was just luck against a weak opponent. Outraged, the hunters challenge him, telling him to show them what he can do. Accepting the challenge, the knight draws his sword and prepares to attack. Surprised, Ash finds himself the target of the knight's sudden attack. He quickly dodges the sword strike, avoiding the attack, and Ash counterattacks with a knee strike. Impressed by his speed, the knight admits that Ash isn't half bad. The knight keeps attacking, and Ash keeps dodging. Focused, Ash prepares to use one of his special skills in the fight. Using the palm of his hand, Ash strikes the knight's face and knocks him down. Falling to the ground from the blow, the knight is left stunned by the attack. Seeing his companion on the ground, the other knight pulls a magic stone from his pocket. He then fits it into the hilt of his sword to activate its power. Wielding their swords, the two knights prepare for a joint attack. Seeing the situation, Ash tells them this has gone far enough. Suddenly, a furious voice shouts, ordering everyone to stop fighting. Startled by the shout, the two knights immediately stop what they're doing. An older man calls out to them, scolding them for causing trouble right after arriving. Knocking both their heads, he calls them fools for their actions. Approaching Ash, Bale comments that the mission had a rough start. Bale then explains that he is Marquis Roy Orlano, captain of the knights. He is known as the strongest knight and one of the 10 master swordsmen of the kingdom. Impressed, the hunters remark on the fame of the legendary captain of the knights. The Marquis apologizes for his men's rudeness, but the hunters tell him it's nothing. The Marquis explains that the investigation is a long-held wish of the queen. Excited, the hunters shout their agreement, accepting the request for help on the spot. Patting him on the shoulder, the Marquis praises his excellent skills. Turning his back, he begins to walk towards the dungeon entrance. Impressed by his demeanor, Ash comments that he is a true knight. Giving the order to depart, Bale shouts for all groups to move out. On the 14th floor, the knights and hunters advance through the dark cavern. Further back, a group of people pushes a wagon with important supplies. At the rear of the expedition, Ash and his group follow along with other hunters. He comments that they should reach the 16th floor without much trouble. Suddenly, a familiar voice shouts, calling for Ash and Ulka in the middle of the cave. Trying to place it, he wonders who the familiar voice that called him could be. Running towards them, Edgar shouts in desperation, saying it's a huge problem. Surprised, Ash and Ulka shout Sir Edgar's name, not understanding the situation. Running, Edgar leads them back to the cave where he made his discovery. Pointing at the wall, he says that's where the knight's remains were. Facing a plain wall, he's shocked to see the skeletons have vanished. Ulka asks if it's the same place, confused, but Edgar confirms it is. Not understanding what happened, Ash asks what it all could mean. Edgar explains that the only explanation is that the dungeon is constantly changing. Ulka is shocked by the idea of walls moving or appearing on their own. Excited, Edgar says that just as he thought, dungeons are truly fascinating. Resuming their exploration, the group moves in a line through the desert of the 16th floor. Suddenly, an explosion erupts near them, catching everyone by surprise. A flock of flying monsters appears in the sky, preparing for a new attack. Drawing their swords, a voice shouts that they're under attack and orders everyone to protect the others. One of the creatures soars high and begins to launch its explosive feathers again. Dodging the blasts, one of the hunters complains about the monster's dangerous magic. Seeing an opening, Ash says it's time to test their strategy and get some payback. Taking aim with her bow, Ulka fires an energy arrow at the monsters. The shot hits one of the creatures dead on, which screeches in pain from the impact. Wounded, the monster starts to fall from the sky as Ash watches and gets ready. Raising his sword, Ash yells and prepares for the final strike against the creature. With a precise cut, he strikes the monster true, finishing his attack. From a distance, the other hunters congratulate Ash and Ulka on their great teamwork. Excited, Ulka celebrates, saying their plan worked perfectly against the monsters. With his sword in hand, Ash tells them to keep up the pace in the battle. After the fight, Bale congratulates everyone on their good work and declares the battle over. Patting him on the shoulder, Bale thanks Ash for his help in the battle. Approaching them, the Marquis asks for the names of the two young hunters. They then introduce themselves to the Marquis as Ash and Ulrika from the Janus squad. Impressed with their moves, The Marquis says he will remember their names. Turning his back, he walks away, leaving the three of them alone in the middle of the desert. Relieved, Ash comments that it was tense, and Bale says the Marquis liked them. Bale explains that Orlano judges people fairly, regardless of their class. With a smile, he says that inviting the two of them was the right decision in the end. Excited, Bale calls to them, saying they're heading to the 17th floor. Ash remarks that this will be their first time exploring that floor of the dungeon. Tanya comes over and warns them to stay alert for the new challenges ahead. With a serious look, she reveals that the monsters on this floor are on another level. On the 17th floor, the expedition moves through a dark, swampy forest. Tanya warns them to be careful of the bottomless swamp nearby. Armed with her bow, Ulka carefully watches the strange waters of the swamp. Looking at the bubbles in the water, Ash suggests the scholars should stay on the previous floor. Suddenly, a huge crocodile-like monster leaps out of the water in front of them. Drawing his sword, Ash shouts that it must be the monster from the 17th floor. He attacks the creature, landing a blow with his sword right on its head, but the blade fails to pierce the monster's thick, tough skin. Surprised, he yells, unable to believe his blades can't cut the creature. Rising up, the monster reveals itself to be one of the dungeon's fearsome lizardmen. Tanya warns that their scales are hard as steel. And there's more. With a cry, the creatures begin to communicate with each other in the swamp. Then, dozens of other lizardmen leap from the water surrounding the group. Worried, Ash realizes the monster is calling for reinforcements. In position, Bale orders the magic archers to prepare to attack. With a commanding shout, he gives the order for them to fire immediately. Several energy arrows are fired at the advancing horde of lizardmen, but the arrows fail to pierce the monster's tough skin, bouncing off them. Shocked, Ash can't believe that not even the magic bows can pierce their defenses. Seeing the monsters closing in, the knights and hunters brace for the confrontation. One of the knights curses, annoyed by the creature's impressive resilience. Suddenly, one of the monsters leaps forward, charging at a knight. The monster bites down hard, sinking its teeth into the warrior. Screaming in pain, the knight is severely wounded by the creature's attack. Falling, the lizardman grabs him by the leg and drags him into the water, trying to drown him in the swamp. Rushing to help, Ash shouts for the knight to hang on and not give up. Following Tanya's tip, he charges, aiming for the monster's throat. As the creature turns, he prepares to strike its weak spot. With a precise attack, he plunges his sword into the lizardman's throat. Defeated, the monster sinks into the swamp, releasing the trapped knight. Helping the injured knight, Ash asks if he's okay after the attack. He then shouts to the others, telling them to treat him immediately. Apologizing, the knight says he didn't know the hunters were so strong. Kneeling before him, Ash prepares to continue the battle against the monsters. Declaring a counterattack, all the elite groups charge into the fight together. Fighting together, the leaders of the hunter groups face the horde of lizardmen. Facing one of the creatures, Ash braces himself for a direct and dangerous confrontation. With its mouth wide open, the monster tries to bite Ash, who defends himself by grabbing it. He realizes the monsters not only have tough scales, but also powerful attacks. Seeing the struggle, the Marquis yells, ordering everyone to retreat immediately. Glancing out of the corner of his eye, Ash hears the order and prepares to fall back. Edgar raises his hand and begins to conjure a powerful elemental spell. With a shout, he unleashes a massive electrical discharge over the entire swamp. The spell hits the water, electrocuting all the monsters within it. The lizardmen are defeated by the attack, falling lifeless into the water. Impressed, Ash remarks that mages are truly terrifying in battle. Exhausted, Edgar says that using high-level magic takes a huge toll on him. The Marquis reassures him, saying that keeping the unit intact is the priority. Arriving at the entrance, Bale announces they're about to enter the 18th floor. The Marquis orders the researchers, porters, and the wounded to stay behind. Bale confirms the decision, stating that an elite squad will advance to the next floor. With a serious expression, the Marquis begins to announce which hunters will go with them. Surprised, Ash can't believe it when he hears his group has also been chosen for the mission. Bale then reveals that the Goddess's Sword and the Janus squad will join the Knights. He explains it was a recommendation from the Marcus after seeing their battle earlier. Encouraging Ash, the hunters tell him to do his best on the mission. With a smile, Ash says he understands, and that he's heading out to explore. On the 18th floor, they come across a vast, damp, green field. Surveying the area, Ash remarks that it looks more like a wet pasture than a swamp. He asks what kind of enemies appear here, and Tanya warns him about stronger lizardmen. Pointing to the horizon, she tells everyone to look at something up ahead. They spot thatched huts and hunting spears arranged on a wooden rack. Before them, a vast village stretches out, with numerous lizardmen living there. Surprised, They realize it's a settlement, which indicates the monsters are intelligent. Lined up in formation, the lizardmen from the settlement prepare for combat. Tanya explains that the lizardmen on this floor are soldiers, not ordinary monsters. The Marquis says they have no choice. They must get past them to advance. Giving an order, Bale tells Ash and his team to stay back and observe. The Marquis shouts, ordering the magic spear unit to attack at once. Advancing in formation, the knights engage the lizardmen's first line of defense. The kingdom's warriors fight bravely against the surrounding monsters. Suddenly, one of the lizardmen begins to inflate its throat strangely. Then, the creature shoots a fireball at one of the knights. Using his shield, the knight manages to block the attack but is pushed back. Surprised, Ash wonders if what he just saw was magic. Even after blocking, the knight's shield begins to melt from the intense heat. The Marquis remarks that the kingdom's engineering has advanced, holding up for at least one hit. Shouting for them to continue the attack, he announces he will also join the fight. 3 lizardmen leap at him, ready to strike with their sharp weapons. Raising his sword, the Marquis unleashes immense power, preparing for combat. Unleashing his power, the Marquis defeats the 3 monsters in a single blow. Despite the victory, other lizardmen charge toward the Marquis without hesitation. Lifting his sword, he prepares for another round of attacks against the monsters. With a circular motion, he strikes all the surrounding enemies at once. Impressed, Ash and Ulka remark that the Marquis's power is truly incredible. Tanya comments that the greatest swordsman's skill hasn't diminished in the slightest. Excited, Bale shouts that the title of one of the 10 swordsmen is no exaggeration. With an eager look, Ash seems anxious to join the battle as well. Inspired by his leadership, the knights charge forward, shouting to follow Lord Orlano. With a shout, Bale rushes forward and cuts down one of the lizardmen with his sword. Just then, Ash lunges forward and cuts off the head of the monster that was about to attack the hunter. Angered, Bale yells at Ash, saying he ordered him to stay put and not fight. With a smirk on his face, he ignores the order and tells him not to say that. Preparing to attack, Ulka warns that they're not just going to stand by and watch. At that, the other hunters also join the fight, showcasing their combat skills. With a smile, Bale remarks that the hunters are really on another level. Calling Ash to the fight, Bale says they're going to end this once and for all. Raising his sword, the Marquis announces their victory, declaring that the monsters have been annihilated. After the battle, they observe the bodies of the lizardmen lying on the ground. Ash then turns to one of the monsters, focusing on something on its body. Kneeling down, he points to something on the monster's body, asking what it is. Ulka approaches and asks Ash what he found on the monster. He points to the red blood, saying he's never seen a monster like this before. Coming up from behind, Edgar says he figured they'd notice the difference in the blood. He explains that monster blood is normally purple and contains toxins. Also, monster bodies tend to decompose and turn to liquid quickly, but a body that Tanya brought back before didn't decompose over time. Edgar reveals that the monster's red blood contained no toxins. Looking at the body, he says he hopes to solve this mystery before he dies. Entering the village, they begin to investigate the lizardmen's settlement. Inside, they find beds woven from grass and insect larvae nearby. They also discover a workshop for making weapons and other tools. Observing everything, Edgar concludes that they clearly possess high intelligence. Excited, he says they're different and fascinating compared to other monsters. Laughing at his excitement, Ash and Ulka enjoy the funny scene. Suddenly, Bale approaches and calls out to Ash, looking like he has something to say. Holding out a sword, Bale tells Ash to take it before they leave for the mission. Surprised, Ash recognizes the weapon, saying it's the magic sword from long ago. He questions the gift, but Bale tells him to use the sword on the 19th floor. The Marquis explains that everything has been preparation for what they'll face down there. With a confident smile, Ash confirms that he understands and is ready for the challenge. On the 19th floor, they find themselves in a vast green field under a blue sky. In the distance, the lizardmen's settlement appears even larger than before. Huge ranks of lizardmen soldiers stand ready, awaiting the command to attack. Impressed by their numbers, Ash estimates there are at least 200 of them ahead. The monsters begin to communicate with strange sounds, seemingly organizing for battle. Then, everyone's attention turns to the largest hut in the center of the camp. From the darkness of the hut, a huge creature lets out a growl, revealing its presence. Emerging from the tent, a giant red lizard man, armed with an axe, appears. With a powerful roar, the monster asserts its presence over everyone on the battlefield. Shocked, the knights identify him as the fearsome Lizard King, who looks like a dragon. With a focused gaze, Ash stares down the opponent, preparing for the great battle. Wielding his sword, he smiles and says, "The Lizard King looks very powerful." Ulka calls him Senpai, pointing out that he has a smile on his face. Embarrassed, He apologizes, trying to hide his excitement for the fight. With a deafening roar, the Lizard King asserts its presence over everyone on the field. Leaping toward the knights, it begins the attack with its enormous axe. With a swing of its axe, it attacks the knights, who try to defend themselves. Using their magic weapons, they try to block the attack but are pushed back. Even as a group, the knights can't contain the Lizard King's strength. Unable to hold their ground, they are thrown far away by the monster's power. With a single blow, it defeats the knights, showing its overwhelming strength. Meanwhile, the other knights are surrounded and attacked by the lizardmen. Bale realizes that the Lizard King's presence is overwhelming everyone. Shouting that he'll go on ahead, the Marquis charges forward to face the Lizard King. The Lizard King attacks with its axe, but the Marquis bravely defends against it. The sword and axe clash, showcasing their incredible strength. Parrying the attack, the Marquis manages to block the blade with his own sword. Then, he releases a slash of green energy, pushing the Lizard King back. Wielding his sword, Roy Orlano charges full force at the Lizard King. Meanwhile, Ash and Ulka fight the other lizard men at the back. Ash laments, saying he wants to help, but there are too many enemies in the way. He concludes that the Lizard King will have to be left to the knights. With that, the two of them advance together to defeat the monsters behind them. Suddenly, two lizard men with glowing throats appear in front of them. They shoot fireballs, but Ash and Ulka dodge and continue their attack. With a swing of his magic sword, Ash cuts down several monsters at once. Stopping in front of one of them, Ash prepares for a direct attack. The monster then fires a fireball right at Ash. Dodging the fire, he finishes off the lizard man and uses its body as a shield to block the incoming attacks. With a powerful kick, he sends the creature's body flying across the field. Readying his magic sword, he focuses for the next attack against the enemies. With a single, precise slash, he cuts another lizard man in half without hesitation. As the monster's body falls, he remains surrounded by dozens of enemies. Looking ahead, he realizes the horde of monsters seems endless. Holding the magic sword, he wonders what they should do next. Facing Marquis Orlano, the Lizard King raises its axe for an attack. With a powerful blow, the creature strikes, clashing with his sword. As he holds back the attack, Roy Orlano shouts that they can't lose here. Pushed back by the monster's force, he struggles to resist the creature's advance. Feeling the pressure of the blow, he can barely stay on his feet. Falling to his knees, Marquis Orlano begins to cough uncontrollably. Clutching his chest, he wonders why this had to happen now. Seeing his opponent's condition, the Lizard King simply stands and watches. Watching from a distance, Ash yells his name while Ulka says they can't reach him. Then, looking at the spear on his back, Ash gets an idea. Turning to Ulka, he orders her to fire all her explosive arrows. She promptly confirms the command and readies her bow with multiple special arrows. Leaping up, she fires the arrows all at once toward the monster. Struck head-on by the arrows, the Lizard King is caught in the midst of the explosion. Yelling for the monster to take it, Ash prepares and hurls the spear with all his might. Taking advantage of the distraction, he launches the weapon toward the Great Lizard King. Hitting the monster squarely, the spear explodes on direct impact with its back. Despite the blow, the Lizard King just turns its head, showing no damage. Ulka yells that the attack didn't work, but Ash replies that it doesn't matter. He explains that they are intelligent creatures and will understand what he's about to do. With a flick of his finger, he taunts the monster to come at him, his signal reflected in the creature's eye. The provocation succeeds. Enraged by the gesture, the Lizard King starts running toward them. Seeing its approach, Ash says they'll make the monster come to them to fight. Nearby, Sir Edgar helps the Marquis, who says Ash saved him. Roy Orlano then tells Edgar that this is the perfect moment to act. With a swift advance, the Lizard King tries to strike Ash with its axe. Ash manages to counter the blow with his sword. With difficulty, he realizes that not even the magic sword can cut the monster. Staring at Ash, the Lizard King lunges at him with its mouth wide open. Shouting a warning, he manages to dodge a sideways swipe from the creature. The monster then spins its body and prepares a new attack with its axe. Hit by the weapon's handle, Ash is thrown backward with great force. He quickly gets up from the ground, looking at the situation from afar. Hearing his name being shouted, Ash turns toward the call. Telling him to fall back, Sir Edgar begins to prepare a fire spell. With a determined look, he shouts that this ends now. He then fires a fireball at the Great Lizard King. Hitting the monster squarely, the magic causes a huge explosion. Beside him, Roy Orlano asks the monster what it thought of the attack. But as the smoke clears, the creature is still standing in the same spot. Lying on the ground, Sir Edgar laments that the attack wasn't enough to defeat it. Seizing the opportunity, Ash leaps onto the monster's back and raises his sword. Using all his strength, he plunges the blade into the back of the creature's neck. Thrown to the ground, Ash is pinned down as the Lizard King roars victoriously. Looking back, he sees that his magic sword has shattered in two. Shouting for Ash to catch, Roy Orlano throws his own sword toward him. Grabbing the new weapon in mid-air, Ash braces himself for a counterattack. Meanwhile, Roy Orlano yells that his sword is the wind itself. Preparing for the final blow, he faces the monster as the Marquise orders him to slice it in two. With a great cry of effort, he begins to deliver the final attack. As he strikes, the blade cuts through the Lizard King's body from top to bottom. Around the field, everyone watches the result of that final decisive blow. Seeing Ash victorious, the knights and hunters celebrate the fall of their main enemy. Roy Orlano then announces that the king is dead and orders one last charge. Following the order, Bail Barone yells for everyone to go and leads the attack. On the ground, Ash remarks that they finally managed to drive all the monsters out. Coming up from behind, Ulka hugs him, saying he was amazing and that she loves him. Watching the scene, Roy Orlano comments that youth is something to be envied. Approaching them, Bail Barone asks if Ash is from this kingdom. Roy Orlano explains he was a discharged Imperial Knight, a great waste of talent. Bail then asks if the Marquis plans to recruit him into the Order of Knights. Revealing his plan, Roy states he will adopt him and bring him into the Order. Surprised by the decision, Bail asks if he would really go that far for Ash. The Marquis says he understands the balance of power and has no intention of forcing anything, but he concludes that true talent always finds a way to rise to the top. Changing scenes, Sergio runs to Sir Edgar with news about the living quarters. Arriving on site, Sir Edgar and his team are met with an unexpected scene. Before them, they find a nest containing 3 lizard eggs. Surprised by the discovery, Sergio remarks that lizardmen lay eggs, unlike other monsters. According to current theory, monsters usually spawn spontaneously in dungeons. Analyzing the situation, Sir Edgar realizes this could be a revolutionary discovery. Changing scenes, Roy Orlano orders them to prioritize the injured before advancing. Approaching the Marquis, Ash calls him over to talk for a moment. Handing back the sword, he thanks him, saying the weapon managed to save his life. Roy praises his strike, but Ash points out that he saw him clutching his chest. Revealing the problem, he explains he has a heart condition that sometimes immobilizes him. He jokes that it's a bit of a joke for a captain, but Ash scolds him. Sitting beside him, Ash receives a potion and thanks the person who handed it to him. Roy then asks if he has something against nobles, and Ash confirms his past experiences. Warning him about the future, he says his deeds will attract marriage proposals. As he drinks the potion, Ash hears the Marquis say he needs to confirm something. Looking at him seriously, Roy asks if Ash wants to be a noble or a hunter. After hearing the question, Ash stares at the Marquis in silence for a moment. Answering the Marquis, Ash says he understands the meaning and honor of the offer. Remembering Ulka, he reveals there's already a woman in his life. He states that he could never accept a marriage arranged by someone else. Roy then asks if he stands by his decision, even though the kingdom practices polygamy. With a brief memory of Rafi, he says he'd rather avoid a loveless marriage. The Marquis then changes the subject, asking about him becoming a noble himself. Laughing, Ash says he's better suited to live by the sword than by politics. Accepting the answer, Roy says he will respect his wishes, leaving Ash surprised. He states he won't let such a strong swordsman be crushed by politics. He then offers Ash a dagger bearing his family's crest. Explaining the gift, he says the dagger is proof of House Orlano's protection. Seeing his hesitation, Roy asks him to accept it as thanks for his contributions. Shaking hands, Ash accepts and promises to live up to his expectations. Changing scenes, the group descends the stairs, remarking that they've reached the 20th floor. Once there, they approach the large door to continue their exploration. Entering the room, Bale comments on the darkness of the place, which has no sky. Approaching the wall, Ash notices a script different from the continental one he knows. Just then, a young scholar approaches him to examine the wall as well. Identifying the script, she says it's an ancient and rare script. Ash then asks if it's from the age of fairy tales and gods. As she takes notes, she says the script proves the existence of an ancient civilization. When Ash asks what it says, she admits she can't read the text. To everyone's confusion, she explains that the script has not yet been deciphered. Ash asks if her interest in civilizations is what made her become a scholar. Suddenly, the floor beneath her feet begins to crack and give way. As the floor collapses, the scholar starts falling into the hole that opened up. Frightened by the fall, she can only cry out for them to wait. Shouting a warning, Ash dives to push her out of harm's way. Falling together, the two hit the ground hard as everything crumbles around them. On the ground, he asks if she's okay, and she thanks him for protecting her. Responding to Ulrika's shout, Ash lets her know that they are both fine. Looking at a structure on the wall, he asks if they are between floors. Up above, a worried Sir Edgar asks what happened and if Ash is safe. Shouting back, the scholar informs the director that it might be an artifact. As Sir Edgar rappels down, the scholar points to the discovery. Now reunited, The three of them observe the enormous structure in front of them. Ash asks if it's a magical tool, but the director corrects him. Believing he knows what to do, Sir Edgar approaches and activates the mechanism. On the floor above, the ground begins to shake, startling the others. Suddenly, a bright light illuminates the area, surprising Bale, Roy, and Ulrika. The light then reveals a large modern room in place of the dungeon. Down below, Sir Edgar concludes that it was the activation device. Carrying the scholar, Ash comments that the place looks like a theater entrance. Before them, a panel displays several drawings of animals and some strange symbols. Touching the screen, he is surprised when the images begin to move. Passing his hand through the panel, he remarks how mysterious it is that he can pass through it. He finds the painting strange, and Ulka questions the smiles on the animals. Ash asks if the light is coming from the box, and Edgar explains its function. Continuing his explanation, he says the energy turned on the lights for the floor. With a determined look, he states that the investigation has confirmed his grand hypothesis. He then reveals that dungeons are not naturally occurring phenomena. Shouting, he concludes that they are facilities artificially built by an ancient people. Recalling a tale, the story goes that gods and their servants created the world in peace. Suddenly, a great calamity in the form of a monster emerged to threaten the world. Fighting the creature, the servants used magic swords, but they were all defeated. To seal away the evil, the gods and their servants then decided to sacrifice their lives. Using all their power, they transformed into particles of light that fell to the earth. From these particles of light, the first human beings were finally born to live in the world. Finishing the story, the scholar explains that this is how humanity came to be. Clapping his hands, Ash recognizes it as a famous fairy tale throughout the continent. With a serious expression, Sir Edgar says he personally doesn't believe in gods. He questions why an omnipotent creator would need to die to stop the great calamity. He then claims the story is just a narrative crafted by the Church of the Divine. Surprised by the revelation, Ash repeats the name of the famous Church of the Divine. As the religion of the Kingdom of Arlon, the Church is a major northern power. Edgar explains that they twisted the ancient tales to suit their doctrine. Even so, Ulka points out that the magic swords from the story actually exist in the world. Sir Edgar agrees there are many overlaps with reality, beyond just the swords. Stating his theory, he says an advanced civilization existed, but they weren't gods. He then concludes that the ancients were probably humans like them, not divine beings. Shocked, Ash and Ulrika say they had never considered that possibility before, but Edgar warns that it's just a hypothesis, the main theory in their research. Interrupting the conversation, Sergio appears, shouting for them to drop the subject immediately. Unfazed, Edgar asks what happened, while Ulka just comments that she knew it. Returning to the main topic, he asks what exactly a dungeon is anyway. According to his hypothesis, he says the place is an ancient facility. Comparing it to granaries, he explains that a labyrinth of monsters can also be built. Pointing to a door, he states that the construction principle is the same. Saying he'll prove it, he watches Roy approach the newly appeared door. Entering the area, Roy wonders what kind of room this is. Seeing the tight space, Sir Edgar announces that the test is about to begin. Pressing one of the buttons, a hand activates the mechanism of the small room. With the door suddenly closing, Ash and Ulka are left outside. Trying to force the door, Ash realizes it won't open at all. Suddenly, the entire room begins to ascend, knocking Ash and Ulka to the ground. At that moment, a light on the wall of the room changes color and turns on. When the door opens again, they find themselves facing a completely different hallway. To their surprise, Knights of the Kingdom were standing right there in front of them. Recalling the structure he saw, Ash realizes the place is an artificial construction. He then shouts that they've descended 3 floors, leaving Ulka completely shocked. With a satisfied smile, Sir Edgar confirms that his hypothesis was right all along. Roy then understands that the ancients traveled freely between the dungeon floors. Therefore, Edgar concludes that the dungeons were created for a specific purpose. Ash and Ulka then wonder what the purpose behind it all could be. But when they ask, Edgar simply admits he doesn't know the answer to that. Then Roy turns to Edgar, asking if he already knew about the transport. With the same expression as before, Edgar admits he had no idea. Grabbing Edgar by the shoulders, Roy furiously yells at him for his total recklessness. He complains that his curiosity always causes trouble, drawing laughter from the director. Suddenly, the elevator door opens in front of Ash and Ulrika. As they exit, they regroup with the rest of the party on the 20th floor. Coming closer, Sergio scolds Sir Edgar for disappearing without telling anyone. Looking at the door, Ulka comments that the elevator will make their research much easier. At this, Bale says that the dungeon's mysteries might be solved soon. Seeing Ash's expression, Bale asks him what's wrong. With a serious look, he reveals that a new staircase has suddenly appeared. Pointing to an opening, He shows Ash and Edgar a dark passage. He explains that the wall opened up, revealing stairs leading down. Ash then suggests using the elevator, but Edgar says it probably won't work. He explains that there were 3 buttons, but the last one didn't respond to the command. His theory is that the artifact can't send power to a lower level. Bale then concludes that they'll have to descend to the next floor on their own. Turning to Ash, he warns that their journey hasn't ended there. Ash understands that even stronger monsters might be waiting on the next floor. The next day, Ash and Ulka notice that the floor's lizardmen have vanished. Looking around, Talon comments that the monsters should have respawned by now. Lost in thought, Ash remains silent as Kyle and Tanya survey the area. They recall the previous night when they received a request from Sir Edgar while camping. He had asked Ash to check on the lizardmen near the 19th floor. His prediction was correct. The monsters didn't respawn as they usually did. Back in the present, Ash is still trying to figure out what's happening. Kyle then suggests they move on to the 18th floor to investigate. Arriving on the floor below, they find the area completely empty, with no monsters. Standing next to Talon, Ash remarks that this is a first. But on the 17th floor, a huge monster suddenly appears and attacks. Blocking the strike, Ash realizes the monsters on this floor have already started to respawn. Without a moment's hesitation, he plunges his sword into the creature's chest. As they fight, one of the hunters shouts that they let their guard down. Seeing a monster roar, the other hunter warns that it's calling for reinforcements. Yelling that they've confirmed what they needed to, Ash orders everyone to retreat immediately. Back on the 20th floor, Ash reports that the monsters haven't respawned. After receiving the report, Sir Edgar becomes thoughtful with this new information. Patting him on the back, Edgar simply says it was good work. Surprised by the reaction, Ash notes that he was much briefer than usual. Speaking with Roy, Sir Edgar agrees to end the investigation right there. With a loud shout, Roy announces to everyone that the large-scale investigation is over. At the dungeon entrance, everyone is thanked for their hard work. Finally leaving the area, Ash remarks that they made it back safely. Approaching him, Roy Orlano says he did a great job this time. Mentioning he has to head back, he says his goodbyes, adding that it's farewell for now. Wishing him a safe trip, Ash says goodbye as he and Roy shake hands. Turning to Ulka, he then suggests they head home now too. Meanwhile, Edgar asks about the progress of copying the ancient script. He then informs them that once they're finished, they will also leave the area. Satisfied, the scholar announces she has finished copying the text. Turning to leave, she starts to walk away from the large, illuminated panel. Suddenly, the panel begins to flicker, displaying an unexpected error message. The message warns of a power overload and a system mutation. Cutting to the first dungeon, Mireille faces a strange, giant, mechanical monster. Leaping into the air, she readies her spear for a direct, powerful attack. With a precise strike, she hits the monster's head with all her might. The impact completely shatters the mechanical creature's head. After defeating the monster, she stands amidst the enemy's wreckage. Then, Mireille wonders how much money she'll get for all this material. Back in the city, the scene shifts to inside the guild hall. Arriving at the counter, the receptionist compliments her on a good day's work. Asking about her earnings, she hears Mireille say, "It was a good day." Showing the bags, she says she brought back 2 full ones from the 4th floor today. 2 men then approach, calling her name, and Mireille asks what they want. Calling out to her, one of them invites her to go drinking with them in town. Thinking about the invitation, she remembers she needs to look for Ash soon, but she also considers that life in the dungeon city isn't bad at all. Pleading, the man tells her to forget about it and come out with them. Suddenly, the other man, holding a newspaper, gets everyone's attention. Showing her the paper, he asks if the Ash in the news is the one she's looking for. Taking the newspaper to read it, she is completely shocked by what she sees. The article is about a hunter named Ash who shined during the dungeon investigation. Reading about Ash and Ulka, she confirms it's them in the news. With a furious look, she realizes the 2 of them were in the 2nd dungeon city. Reading that a large reward was issued makes her even more irritated. In a fit of rage, she stomps on the floor and complains about the money they earned. With a determined look, she announces she's going to the 2nd city too. The receptionist tries to stop her, but Mireille shouts that she's already decided and is going. Slamming her hand on the desk, the receptionist begs her to at least finish her pending jobs. Promising extra pay, the men join the desperate receptionist's plea. Asking her to reconsider, the receptionist insists that Mireille take the jobs. Celebrating her decision, the receptionist says that now things will finally get done. Slamming her spear on the table, she warns that she'll finish everything very quickly. Now on the 5th floor, she braces herself for the tough monsters there. Suddenly, she sees an energy attack coming toward her down the hall. Just then, she finds a child surrounded by monsters, desperately crying for help. Trembling with fear, The child freezes as the monsters close in. Mireille realizes it's just a child, and the situation is very strange. Seeing the mechanical monsters approaching, the child starts screaming in terror. Raising her hands, she yells for the monsters to stay away. Suddenly, an electric discharge shoots from her hands, hitting one of the monsters. Surprised by the scene, Mireille wonders if what she saw was magic. After the attack, the creature hit by the magic stops moving completely. She then remarks that she's never seen anything like this happen in a dungeon before, but soon after, the monster and the others start moving normally again. Seeing them approach, the child again pleads for someone to help her. Without a second thought, Mireille prepares to jump into action and save the child. With a great leap, she hurls her spear at one of the monsters. Hitting the first monster, she completely destroys it with a precise strike. Rushing past the child, she continues her advance against the other mechanical creatures. With her spear, she strikes and defeats one of the monsters. Spinning her spear, she hits and defeats all the monsters in her path. With a leap, she dodges an attack and lands in front of the child. Ordering the child to get behind her, Mireille takes a protective stance. Seeing more monsters approaching, they brace for another round of combat. With a determined look, Mireille charges the mechanical creatures once more. Using her spear, she easily strikes and destroys all the monsters. Impressed, the child remarks on the warrior's incredible strength and skill. Shouting that there's only one left, she prepares for the final blow. Using all her strength, she leaps and strikes the last remaining monster. After the battle, she turns to the child, catching her breath. Approaching, she asks what the child was doing alone on this floor. With a pained expression, the child remains silent for a brief moment. Grabbing Mireille's hands, the child starts to cry and thank her desperately. Shifting to the guild, Mireille asks again why she was alone on that floor. She then asks if her party was wiped out, or if she was betrayed and abandoned. The child explains she became a hunter to escape her family's orders. Talking about her family, she reveals she's from the capital and has a studious brother. Since her brother was too busy, the family leadership was passed down to her. On top of that, her family wanted to force her into a political marriage. Mireille then asks her age to better understand the situation. The child replies that she's 16, leaving Mireille completely shocked by the revelation. She then explains that she stopped growing at 12, a side effect of magic. Describing the fiancé, she says it's an older, snobbish woman. Slamming the table, the child yells that she has a right to be happy too. Mireille then understands why she decided to run away from home. The child says she wanted to earn her own money as an independent hunter. Understanding the situation, Mireille asks about her weapons, armor, and dungeon supplies. She replies that she planned to eat at the inn and just get by on water until dinner. Flicking her on the forehead, Mireille scolds her for her reckless attitude. She then warns her that the dungeon is not a game for naive people to enter. Telling the child to go home, she questions her lack of determination and preparation. But the child replies that she absolutely does not want to go back home. Grabbing her arm tightly, the child starts to explain herself more clearly. Then the child shouts that she wants to be as cool and strong as her too. Caught off guard, Mireille is completely stunned by the sudden compliment. She then says she was mesmerized by how powerfully Mireille fought. With a hopeful look, the child asks if she can form a party with her. Begging for the chance, the child says she'll do anything she asks. Pressured by her insistence, Mireille seems unsure how to handle the request. Pulling her own hair, she yells in frustration at the insistent and unexpected situation. Finally agreeing, she warns that she'll teach her the basics, but she'll be very strict. While the child celebrates happily, Mireille maintains a worried expression about it all. Asking to start with names, she introduces herself first as Mireille. Answering the question, the child introduces herself to the warrior as Ren Albadine. After a sigh, she says she's been delayed again, but will go see them. Turning to Ren, she yells for Ash and Ulka to wait for her. Now in the second dungeon, Ash stands ready by the water, sword in hand. A ripple in the water alerts him that something is approaching. Gripping his sword tightly, he braces for the coming fight. Suddenly, a monster's head emerges from the water right in front of him. A crocodile monster leaps out of the water, charging at Ash. He yells to Ulka, warning her that the monster has finally shown itself. With a leap, Ulka fires an arrow straight into the great monster's mouth. Seeing 3 more monsters closing in, they prepare for battle. He strikes, managing to parry the monster's attacks. With his sword, he pierces the head of another creature. Warning him of the enemies, Ulka tells him to watch his right. Spinning around, Ash strikes the last 2 monsters in a single blow. Standing back to back, Ulka warns him not to let his guard down. Having defeated them all, Ash suggests they hunt for the next monsters. A month later, they were back to their normal routine as hunters. Looking around the dungeon, they noticed the place is crowded with hunters from other cities. The success of the investigation spread the word, attracting many new people. On top of that, Their success led to them having to give several interviews. Thanks to Orlano's dagger, they were able to turn down numerous recruitment offers. Seeing the monsters have already been hunted, Ash suggests they call it a day. Back on the 20th floor, they decide to leave and end the hunt. As they turn to leave, they hear a familiar voice calling out to them. Walking towards them, Ren Albadine greets them with a big smile. Together, they remark that the monsters on the upper floors haven't returned yet. Ash complains that because of this, he only managed to kill 4 monsters all day. Ulka then mentions the difficulties the scholars in the dungeon face as well. She asks if it isn't frightening, and Ren replies that the knights protect them. Ren then says the investigation of the lower floors should begin soon. Saying their goodbyes, Ash and Ulka announce they're also leaving. Suddenly, the elevator light starts to flicker strangely and unexpectedly. Stepping out of the elevator, Ash comments to Ulka on how useful it is. He explains that using it is a privilege for the investigation's hunters. The scene changes, and the two are now walking through the bustling streets of the main city. Greeted by a vendor, Ash tells him they just got back from the dungeon. Overhearing them, a female vendor remarks that the two are as close as ever. Known by everyone now, they had become true celebrities throughout the city. Arriving at the guild, Ash tells May they brought some new materials. Suddenly, a hunter calls them bootlickers for the capital's nobles. Another group of hunters comments that it must be nice to get rich that way. Approaching Ulka, they suggest she should be on their side instead. With a furious look, she says she's going to finish them, but Ash stops her. Explaining the situation, he says the others resent their special treatment. Just then, a familiar voice greets Ash and Ulka amidst the small commotion. Seeing the scene, Tanya approaches and remarks that they seem to be having fun. She then complains that she also has to deal with annoying people all the time. Irritated, the man asks who she's calling small fry to his face. With a smile, Tanya asks if he wants to be taken down by her right then and there. Grabbing Tanya by the neck, he yells at her to bring it on. With a swift move, she easily throws him over her shoulder. Thrown to the ground, he can barely get up after the precise blow. Furious, another hunter tries to attack her, but he's also easily thrown to the ground. With a kick, Tanya sends the man flying before he can react. Seeing the situation, Ash and Ulka rush over to try and calm Tanya down. Jumping in front, Ulka lands a powerful punch on the other hunter. Lying on the floor, he's watched by his terrified companion. With furious glares, Tanya and Ulka get ready to continue the fight. With a double punch, the two of them hit the last remaining hunter. Watching the scene, Ash just puts a hand to his face, lamenting the whole mess. He then comments that the two of them are a bunch of troublemakers. As he apologizes, he hears May say they'd been having trouble with them too. Ash asks Tanya if she's being targeted, but she says everyone in the investigation is facing this. Tanya remarks that hunters live in a meritocracy. Some people are just naturally talented. It doesn't make them big shots. In the dungeon, one of the thugs asks why they can't use the elevator. The soldiers tell them to use the stairs to access the lower floors. The thug's leader gets annoyed, and another one remarks it must be nice for those with special training. Elsewhere, Kyle and the knights are also preparing to enter the dungeon. Annoyed, the hunter kicks a bucket and complains that no one understands their strength, but a mysterious foot stops the bucket before it can roll away. Catching the group's attention, 2 hooded figures suddenly appear before them. They then suggest that the hunters join them for the lower floors. Confused by the offer, the man asks why they should join them. The figures explain that groups reaching the 20th floor gain special permission. After a moment of thought, the hunter and his group decide to accept the offer. With a sinister smile, the man says they'll accept their deal. Satisfied with the answer, the figures tell them to consider it a contract. On the 13th floor, they find a group of skeletal warriors approaching. Hidden, Ash suggests they approach silently to take them by surprise, but before they can act, he's interrupted by a noisy group passing by. Rushing past them, the hunters charge toward the monsters without a second thought. Shouting that the prey is theirs, they start attacking the skeletons without hesitation. Watching the scene unfold, Ash and Ulka are left unsure of what to do. Back at the guild, Ash comments that the out-of-town hunters have no manners. As they reach the door, they notice a lot of noise and movement coming from inside. A group of hunters is preparing for a rescue mission. Seeing the commotion, Ash and Ulka wonder what's going on. Spotting Talon and his partner, they approach to ask about the situation. They explain that a hunter's body was found on the 14th floor. Ash remarks that this has been happening a lot, likely because they underestimate the monsters on these floors. Talon then says the outsiders only cause trouble and that they got what they deserved. Asking him to take a look, he shows a sketch of the body they found. Looking at the images, Ash recognizes the hunters from the fight the day before. Talon then confirms they were the same ones who caused a scene at the guild. Ash remembers there were 4 of them, but only 2 bodies were found on the floor. Asking about the others, he learns they haven't shown up in town yet. Ash finds it strange, since the terrain on that floor should have left traces of the bodies. Trying not to overthink it, he's comforted by the hunters beside him. As they're about to leave, Ash and Ulka say their goodbyes to head back. But before they go, May calls them over for a quick chat. She asks about the trouble they've had with other guilds and hunters. After hearing their answer, she says she has a solution. With a smile, she announces the issuance of special tags for exclusive hunters. Confused, Ash asks if it's different from the hunter licenses they already use. Explaining their function, she says the tags serve as special identification. This would make it easier for them to turn down unwanted invitations from other guilds. To get them issued, she says they need an interview with the chief right now. May informs them that the branch chief is in the office at this very moment. Ulka asks if that isn't normal, but May explains he rarely shows up. Agreeing to the interview, Ash and Ulka are led to the room. Knocking on the door, May announces their arrival to the branch chief. With permission to enter, May opens the door and they step inside. Thanking them for coming, a woman greets them from inside the large office. With a smile, she introduces herself as Aurora, the guild's branch chief. Looking at them, Aurora says it's a pleasure to finally meet them in person. Greeting her back, Ash and Ulka come face to face with the famous branch chief. As head of the association and the city's administrator, she's an important figure. The reason she doesn't visit the guild often is because she's so capable. Aurora then says that in their case, an interview isn't even necessary. She explains that she's heard a lot about Ash's accomplishments from Captain Bale. Confused, Ash asks why she called them there if it wasn't needed. With a smile, she replies that she wanted to meet such excellent hunters in person. Getting straight to the point, Aurora opens a box that was on her desk. Revealing the contents, she says that inside are their new identification tags. Explaining the tags, she says the gold ones are for exclusive hunters. The silver tags, on the other hand, are for the guild's top hunters. With a smile, she says that capable hunters like them are truly rare. Under the weight of expectation, Ash and Ulka feel a bit awkward with the praise. Extending her hand, she says goodbye and hopes to see them again soon. Leaving the room, Ash and Ulka are confused by Aurora's enigmatic farewell. As they close the door, they get ready to go back to their normal activities. With a jealous expression, Ulka comments that the chief was very beautiful. Holding her arm, he smiles as he tries to calm the situation. With a warm gaze, he says his type is more cute and delicate. Looking at her, he stares for a moment before continuing to speak. Unable to hide it, Ulka turns completely red and flustered by the compliment. Turning to leave, she says that it's fine with her then. Exploring the 16th floor, they find a vast desert with flying monsters. With her bow, Ulka shoots an energy arrow toward the monsters. Hitting the monsters head-on, she easily knocks them out of the sky. After defeating them, Ash praises her skill with aerial enemies. Seeing the bodies, he says he hopes they don't find any more to bring back to the guild. Pointing to the fallen monsters, Ash approaches to collect their materials. With a thoughtful expression, Ulka questions the recklessness of the hunters from other cities. Ash agrees that finding bodies has become common in the city lately. He comments that it's not just recklessness, but Ulka doesn't seem to quite understand. Looking into the distance, Ash is surprised by something he sees in the middle of the desert. Seeing a group of fallen people, he shouts a warning that there are people on the ground. Running to the spot, they get closer to see what happened to them. Checking the bodies, Ash realizes that all 4 of them are no longer breathing. Looking at their faces, he recognizes the other 2 members of the group from the fight. With this, they realize the bodies were found far from their companions. Seeing the scene, he can't understand what's happening in this dungeon. Days later, Ash and Ulka are invited by Bale to a special dinner. Upon seeing Ulka, he apologizes for making her wait for him. Wearing a beautiful white dress, she looks stunning in front of Ash. Seeing her, he's left completely speechless, blushing at the sight. She asks what's wrong, and Ash tells her the dress looks great on her. With a smile, she thanks him and says he looks very sharp as well. Thinking it was a casual outing, they find it's actually at a high-class restaurant. As they're led to their room, a butler guides them to the door. Upon entering, they are surprised to see who is waiting for them inside. Seated at the table, Kyle and Aurora greet the 2 with smiles on their faces, wishing them a good evening. Aurora welcomes them to the dinner she arranged. Surprised, Ash wonders what the branch chief is doing there. With a smile, Bale introduces Aurora as his fiancée to the 2 hunters. Shocked by the revelation, Ash and Ulka can't hide their surprise. Ash then understands why Aurora had already heard about them from the captain. Aurora then says that Bale talks so much about Ash that she even gets jealous. With a laugh, Bale suggests they start dinner with a special toast. At the table, Bale shares that he grew up in an orphanage in that very city. Surprised, Ash comments on how incredible it is that he became a division chief. Bale explains that his father recommended Aurora for her great talent with the nobles. While they were working together, Bale reveals he was the one who proposed to her. With a smile, Ash and Ulka remark how well the two of them fit together. Ulka asks if the work at the association isn't difficult because of the others. Aurora says she feels bad about the problems with hunters from other cities. Ash agrees, saying the death cases in the dungeon are very strange. He questions if people would really enter the lower floors so carelessly. Agreeing with the strangeness, Bale becomes thoughtful about the dungeon's current situation. He then announces he will increase the number of nights in the dungeon tomorrow. Once outside, Bale calls Ash over for a private chat. He says he has already spoken with his favorite jewelry store about Ash's request. Bale asks if Ash got her size, and he nods in confirmation. Seeing this, Aurora and Ulka complain about the two of them whispering in the middle of dinner. With an invitation, Aurora asks Ulka to go out, just the two of them, sometime. The next day, Ash decides they will descend the dungeon stairs. He then comments that the crowd on the third floor is getting bigger and bigger. Ulka notices there are even food stalls and blacksmiths set up there. With a smirk, Ash mentions he heard there's even a brothel there. Pulling his ear, Ulka asks if the scholars are also in the tents. He explains they are in luxury inns because they're vital for the research. Descending to the 9th floor, they encounter other hunters and comment on the traffic. On the 10th floor, they see a group of hunters helping an injured comrade. Arriving on the 16th floor, they find another hunter lying on the ground. As they get closer, they realize it's another body found in the dungeon. Analyzing the body, they notice a chest wound that seems to have been fatal. Ulka suggests a monster, but Ash says there would have been more than one wound. Looking closer, Ash notices a small mark on the man's neck. Ulka then says it looks like a needle prick, leaving Ash confused by the situation. Opening the body's mouth, Ash is surprised to see its purple tongue. They then realize the chest wound was just a simple distraction. In a meeting, they discuss the possibility that a poisoning occurred. Ash explains that the toxin is made from a plant called the purple moonflower. Kyle praises him for knowing so much, and Ash says he's seen a similar case. Bale then comments that the flower is on the kingdom's list of prohibited imports. With a serious look, Ash says it wasn't an accidental death but a murder. Seeing everyone's reaction, they are shocked by the grave accusation. Furious, Tanya says that it must be a man-eater operating in the dungeon. Confused by the term, Ash listens as Talon explains it's a criminal who robs hunters. Kyle then says the dungeon is an easy place to commit crimes and get away. He also notes that this aligns with the deaths on the lower floors, but May points out that none of the bodies found had their equipment stolen. Ash asks if the last victim is the only one killed by this so-called man-eater. May says they can't be sure, as it could be someone who kills for pleasure. Ash agrees to investigate, and Bale takes the opportunity to make a special request. With a serious look, he asks Ash and Ulka to patrol the dungeon. He explains they are short on nights for patrol duty at the moment. Bale then says he trusts them both, and that the association will pay well. With a smile, Ash says there's no reason to refuse their offer. Seeing their cooperation, Tanya, Kyle, and Talon watch the meeting with satisfied expressions. Bale and May then thank Ash and Ulka for their great help in the investigation. Asking about the rules, Talon questions if they can eliminate the criminal if they find them. With a worried look, Bale says they don't know their numbers or their strength. Seeing the seriousness of it all, Talon and Kyle prepare for the dangerous mission ahead. Thinking about the bodies, Ash reflects on the hunter-killer who is on the loose. Outside, Ash realizes this is the jewelry store Bale recommended. Looking at the shop, he comments that the place looks really expensive. Entering the jewelry store, he remembers the tradition of giving bracelets to lovers. As he approaches the counter, the saleswoman recognizes him as Lord Ash. She assumes he's looking for a bracelet for a lady. Looking at the bracelets, he remembers he decided to confess to Ulka with one. The saleswoman asks if his relationship is serious, leaving Ash flustered. She then shows him a bracelet, explaining that the ruby signifies marriage. Looking at the jewel, Ash blushes, speechless at the suggestion. After a moment, he decides to take that special bracelet with him. Back at the dungeon, Ash and Ulka prepare for another patrol. Meeting the knights, he tells them he'll be joining them again today. At Bale's request, they've been patrolling the dungeon alongside the Knight Order. After being greeted, Ash asks if anything new has happened in the dungeon today. The hunter replies that there's nothing out of the ordinary, and Ash thanks him. A knight then comments that Ash's presence is a great help with the investigations. Suddenly they hear something and stop to see what's happening. Running toward them, two hunters desperately cry out to the knights for help. As they get close, a knight asks what happened, and the hunter points ahead. Terrified, he says the killer was murdering someone right in the middle of the passage. The knight grabs him and asks if the killer is still further inside. Without wasting a moment, They start running in the direction the hunter indicated. As they round the corridor, they spot a figure standing beside a body. Sword in hand, the mysterious figure has its back to a fallen body. A strange substance drips from its mouth onto the floor. Turning to face them, the figure reveals a completely inhuman and terrifying appearance. Shocked by the sight, Ash freezes, unsure how to react. Moving forward, a knight yells that he's under arrest, but Ash senses something is wrong. Clutching his head, the man starts to scream in pain and agony. Screaming in pain, the man continues to writhe and hold his head. Seeing the scene, the knight wonders what's happening to him. With a leap, the man lunges at the knight with his sword. Blocking the strike, the knight manages to parry the attack with his own sword, but the force of the blow sends him flying back, causing him to fall to the ground. Yelling his name, Ash is horrified by what just happened. The man then stops and stares at Ash, who is stunned by his strength. He didn't look strong, yet he sent the knight flying with a single blow. Leaping toward Ash, the man attacks with a furious scream. With his sword, Ash manages to block the attack. Under pressure, he wonders where all this strength is coming from. Seeing the fight, Ulka readies her shot, but Ash stops her. As he defends himself, he notices the man's swordsmanship is a complete mess. With a furious gaze, the man continues to attack Ash erratically. Looking at his eyes, Ash realizes the man isn't in control of his actions. Dodging the attack, Ash leaps over the man, sword in hand. With a look of surprise, the man turns to follow Ash's movement. Ash strikes him in the face with his knee. The man collapses to the floor, knocked out cold. Seeing the unconscious man, Ash says he has no idea what's going on. As the knights tie him up, Ash watches with a confused expression. A knight suggests taking him to headquarters to get his story, but before they can leave, the knight is startled by something behind them. The other hunter gets up, saying it wasn't his fault. With expressions of dread, Ash and the knight look at the hunter. Clutching his head, he starts attacking Ash wildly. Blocking the blow, Ash realizes he's also incredibly strong and out of control. Seeing the fight, Ulka furiously yells for them to stop. With a swift kick, she slams her foot into the hunter's face. Sent flying back, he hits the ground and is knocked unconscious. With a smile, Ulka says that should settle things for now. The next day, the captured man swears he remembers nothing. Questioned by the knight, he confirms he remembers entering the dungeon. In despair, he says he would never kill his friend of 10 years. Observing the interrogation, Ash and Ulka stand silently outside the room. Updating Bale, the knight reports that the suspects weren't carrying any poison. Bale then says the other suspect also doesn't remember what happened. Completely lost, Ash says the story makes no sense. Ulka wonders why the killer has only started appearing in the dungeon now. She recalls that until then, only bodies were being found the next day. As soon as the knights started investigating, the suspects began to magically appear. From this, Ash suggests the culprit wants the crimes to be discovered. Bale then theorizes that a mastermind could be driving other hunters mad and using them. Ash comments that it's an elaborate plan and the motive isn't money. Bale then reveals that the Rosebell kingdom is seen as a threat by everyone. Ash asks if the goal is to sabotage the kingdom's economic growth. Pointing to the map, Bale says the country that sees them as the biggest threat is Arlon. The kingdom of Arlon follows a divine faith and views Rosebell as an enemy. Ash says a single flower isn't enough to link them to the neighboring kingdom. With a serious look, Bale declares that this is a deliberate attack against the entire kingdom. Bale explains that all entries are managed, but no suspects have been registered. Ulka then suggests that the culprit might have been hiding in the dungeon all along, but Ash says there's no record of that, which further complicates things. Bale suggests asking Marquis Orlano for help, since the case is so complex. As time passes, the investigation continues with no leads or concrete progress. Walking through the dungeon, Ash complains that they haven't found a single clue about the case. Suddenly, he sees a hunter being approached by a scantily clad woman. She gets close and offers him a good deal inside the dungeon. Seeing this, Ash and Ulka move in to see what's happening. The woman shows them photos of the men who fought and were found later. She then explains that they were also approached by a duo in the dungeon. According to the woman, it was a man and a woman, both very young and suspicious looking. Shocked, Ash and Ulka look at each other, realizing they have a new and important lead. Angrily, Bale realizes they've overlooked a blind spot in the investigation. The records for hunters and people from the pleasure districts are kept completely separate. Ash deduces that a skilled person could disguise themselves and pass as a hunter. Bale then realizes they got stuck on the idea that the culprit had to be a fighter. With a smile, Ash says that at least they've finally made some progress. With a determined look, Bale prepares to put the next plan into action. Outside, the knights take their positions in the southern district, where the brothels are located. Bale explains that the dungeon prostitutes are dispatched from that same area. A knight arrives, reporting that the troops are ready for action. With a shout, Bale orders all units to begin sweeping the area. Watching the scene, Ulka wonders if they'll be able to catch the culprit. With a thoughtful expression, Ash gets Ulka's attention to talk to her. He reminds her that, according to Bale, the culprit wants to sabotage the dungeon's exploration. Ulka then says she doesn't think killing a few hunters would cause that much damage. Ash agrees, and questions why they aren't attacking high-ranking targets. Suddenly, he realizes something and turns to face Ulka with a shocked look. With a look of astonishment, he yells that the real targets are the scholars. Explaining to Ulka, he says that the scholars are the brains of the entire kingdom, but she reminds him that the scholars have their own knight escorts for protection. Ash then says the crimes in the dungeon were just a diversion to draw their attention away. Realizing the trap, he says the search in the brothels is part of the plan. He then screams in desperation, realizing the entire district is a giant trap. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocks the middle of the city's southern district. Startled by the noise, the knights receive orders to go and help at the scene. Seeing the movement, Ash yells that it's all just a big distraction. He tells Ulka they need to get to the central district immediately. As they run, Ulka worries about Ren, but Ash vows to capture them alive. With a determined look, he concludes that the objective is to kidnap the scholars. As they get closer, he remembers that the scholars hold all the knowledge about the dungeons. Ulka then comments that losing that knowledge would be a huge blow to the kingdom. Arriving at the location, they find the inn's door wide open and damaged. Rushing inside, they fear the worst has already happened to everyone. Entering the inn, they find several knights fallen and wounded on the floor. With a shocked look, Ash worries about the fate of the scholars inside. Coming down the stairs, a mysterious figure walks silently towards them. Standing on the stairs, the scholars seem to be in a total trance. Ash then realizes they have the same appearance as the dungeon assassins. Looking at Ash and Ulka, a hooded figure comments that there are still some left. Carrying Ren on their back, the pair prepares to face the two hunters. Seeing Ren being carried, Ash and Ulka brace themselves for the coming battle. Shouting her name, Ash asks what they plan to do with everyone. Saying they don't need to hide, the figures remove their hoods and reveal themselves. The man then suggests they finish off the others left in the place. Seeing the pair, Ash realizes they are the masterminds behind everything. With their weapons in hand, Ash and Ulka warn them that they won't go easy. With a smirk, the man says the hunters of this kingdom are idiots. With a smile, the man says he's going to show them something really good now. Just then, an energy attack is fired, hitting Ash with an intense flash of light. Feeling the impact, he's paralyzed, unable to move for a moment. Falling to his knees, he props himself up to keep from passing out. The man then asks what he thought of his powerful magic. Clutching his head, Ash still feels the effects of the mysterious attack he took. Even in pain, he turns and asks Ulka if she's okay. Her body trembling, she also seems to have been hit by the same attack. Making a gesture with his hand, the man beckons her to come to him. Shouting for her, Ash watches as she starts walking towards the enemy. Getting closer, the man approaches and whispers a command directly to her. Without responding, Ulka just stands there as Ash desperately calls her name. Reaching for her back, she draws her weapon. With a smile on his face, the man orders her to attack.